All right. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Sean, how are you today?
Thanks for having me over.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for coming over. Appreciate it.
I've never done this before. I've
Okay,
never gone to somebody's house to film before.
we're making history then.
We are making history.
Good.
But Bill, back in 1989,
Mhm.
you were likely one baseball game away from being drafted by the MLB as a
Yes,
pitcher.
that's correct. Hmm.
And now you are laying here, face down in your living room on a bed, and you really haven't been outside on your own strength in years.
Well, yeah, a couple years I've been bedbound pretty much.
And I want to know how this happened. And I know it didn't
Yeah,
happen overnight.
yeah,
I know there are a lot of tragic circumstances that got you to this point,
yeah.
and I want to give you the opportunity to tell your story.
Absolutely.
It's either going to be a comeback or a memoir.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right.
So,
No in between. So, well, let's. So if I go back, I'll start from the beginning. Grew up in a home with young parents, and we moved around quite a bit. Third grade, I was in 3 different schools, but along the lines, you pick up a lot when you move. And ultimately, the first stop was in Wilkinsburg. We lived in Wilkinsburg. We actually had a field behind our house called Whitney Field. And in the 70s, the place was booming. Every night, 300 kids out there playing sports. And the school district was a little different back then because it's not like the suburbs are here today. Back then, because the community wasn't as big as some of the communities today, you would play Little League Baseball, for instance, 9 through 12, whereas today it's 9 and 10, 11 and 12. So really, the advantage of growing up in the city is that you're exposed to older kids that are more talented, physical, and so you tend to develop faster. Now, in my case, literally my house was behind home plate, the backstop. So a lot of times I would go to the ball field, started throwing a ball on my own, even before I was in school, around 5 years old, and I would throw it against the wall for hours at a time and would play games in my head, literally games, had my own rules. So that's where I think the love of baseball started.
so if you wouldn't have lived there, do you
Yeah, it
think
might have
you
been
would have?
different. Oh, 100% different.
So, being the fact that you were so close to a field,
Right. Because every night there was games going on. And believe it or not, the first start I got was with girls softball. They would let me be the catcher because I had a pretty good arm. And then I would bat boy for different teams. So I had a uniform. So I'm at every game, taking it in, soaking it in, and just was attracted to the game. Now, I did play all sports, but because of that field, exactly right. Had I not grown up there, I probably, because there was no one in my family that really played baseball. We come from football family. So, yeah, you could attribute the field 100%. And then from there, I pretty much spent a good time, started Little League there, and then we moved to Penn Hills. And when we moved to Penn Hills, that was a big blow because Penn Hills at that time, you're talking about, I'm trying to think of the exact year, oh, 76, 77, somewhere in there. Penn Hills was a great community, a thriving community, a lot of kids, many schools, and really competitive in sports because of the number of the kids. Well, when my mother first called me to sign me up for baseball, they said, "We're sorry, the registration's closed. There's 11 kids on a waiting list. There's that many kids." And so for the next year, my mother was driving me from Penn Hills, literally back to Wilkinsburg for baseball games. And then they have these meetings at tournaments. And the guy from Wilkinsburg who met with a guy by the name of Paul Seneca at a tournament, who was running the leagues at that time for Penn Hills, um, said something about, "Well, boy, you have a really good ball player that lives in your district." And he says, "Well, who would that be?" And he mentioned my name, and they said, "Man, he's a good ball player. You're missing out by not letting him play. I assure you of that." And so that's how I kind of got, again, acclimated into Penn Hills. So I joined the Penn Hills system about, whatever the year was. I was 11 years old going into Little League here. And again, I had already had 2 years of Little League experience. So I'm already further ahead than the other kids. And again, played through the system, all the way through the system like anybody else. And Had some pretty remarkable games, and like in the pony league age. That's when you knew a lot of kids are good in little league, but they either fizzle out or the competition catches up with them.
Or they're doing it just because their parents want them to do it,
Right.
and they're not taking it really serious.
Exactly right. But I will say this, looking back on it, and not to sound arrogant, but people started to know that I was a little different because at 14, my second year in pony league, I had pitched 3 games that year where I had 20 strikeouts in a game. 3 games, 20 strikeouts. I mean, it was insane. Like every day going, lucky people to get a hit. And so you knew that there was something there. Something was happening, yeah. And then go up and through the middle school years, had some really, really successful days. And then when it comes to the high school, in 10th grade, which would have been 1985, the Penn Hills district, for the first time, allowed a 10th grade class to come up because their numbers started to shrivel a little bit, but it was the first time, if you were not in 11th grade, that you got to compete for a sport, a varsity sport. So, long story short, I was the first one to ever be a 3-year varsity letterman because I had the opportunity to try out. And so, yeah, it was rare that you made the team in 10th grade, but I did. So I ended up playing 3 years, had a great time, enjoyed it quite a bit. Played American Legion baseball in the summertime. And that's really where I got my opportunity in American Legion baseball. The funny part, though, about that was baseball was actually third on my list. My first love was basketball. Second love was football. And then third love was baseball. And I loved basketball, everything about it. But I quickly realized, realistically, as I became a senior, it's just not going to happen. As much as I love it, I'm as a guard, great ball handling skills, but I'm not going to go. I mean, I might have been able to play at a small school, but nothing's going to pan out with that. And football was I was in between. I was a strong safety, running back, kicker, punter, did everything on the field. But again, I don't know where I fit in size-wise at that time because wouldn't have been fast enough to play the secondary, wasn't big enough to play on the inside. So, again, could have played it maybe a Slippery Rock, IUP, something. But when you're throwing the ball like high 90s, then you take where you can get a free education. Sure. And that's really what happened.
Before you move on, Bill, I think it's interesting that I asked you to kind of like take me from the beginning, and you initially go to your baseball story. Mm-hmm. I think you still identify as being that baseball player. Is that true?
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think, that baseball player, it was a passion. And even though I like the other sports, just like any other kid, when you're young, when it's football season, you want to be a football player. When it's baseball season, you want to be a baseball player. But no doubt that baseball was special to my heart just because of the time that I committed to it. And again, doing some special things. I'll give you an example, another, Sean, not to turn the clock back, but, okay, T-ball. You're talking about T-ball. Now, I don't know too many kids that are in T-ball that have we call it baseball IQ, in understanding the game and how things transform. And in baseball, when the ball's hit, you've got to make a lot of instantaneous decisions. And you see even the mental errors of the big leagues. I mean, with our own Pirates, I hate to say it. But I had the first unassisted triple play that many people had never even heard of or seen in their life. Because, again, at a very young age, I'm 6 years old or whatever, guy on first and second, I remember it clearly, and the kid hits a line drive over, like, to my left, going towards center field. Well, the runners on first and second took off. So, long story short, I literally dive in the air, make the catch, had enough understanding of the game to go tramp on second base and tag the runner that was already about halfway down the line for an unassisted triple play.
Most T-ball players all go to the ball at the same time.
Right.
It's like soccer.
Right.
They're all chasing the toy.
That's exactly
There's
right.
no organization at all.
Well, I think that's when people really, even at that age, opened up and said, what 6-year-old kid knows to do that? Well, I didn't think anything of it back then because I ran through that scenario a million times in my mind off the wall. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do. I mean, so mentally, for some reason, that's a game that I always grasped easily. Football, not as much. My mental IQ in football wasn't anywhere near. But baseball, I don't know how to explain it. We didn't have video games back then, so I don't just playing in my head, playing in my head.
Did baseball players run in the family?
They did not. They did not.
So it's not like you were getting taught by your father, your grandfather, or your brothers, or whatever.
Well, I did. I had my dad. Yeah, wasn't a ball player. Was a football player. Good football player. Taught me a lot about football. But I'll say this: even though my dad didn't know anything about the game, my dad still would hit me balls, throw me balls, play me catch. Give me reps. And that's the best advice I can even give these parents out there today. You don't need all these specialized lessons at an early age. Give them the reps. Take them to the batting cages. Do whatever. But yeah, I give my dad credit for that, absolutely. But again, growing up in a neighborhood full of kids, because my dad wasn't home all that often, it really came from all the playing time with the kids in the playground. And again, me throwing the ball off the wall myself. And then again, I started to watch the game a little bit on TV. And again, my mother was my biggest supporter in terms of my athletic career, and bought me a Pirates uniform so I could be a bat boy. And but yeah, it was pretty good time. But baseball, yeah, was a big part of my life. But again, no regrets growing up in the city. It gave me the mental toughness to be able to compete with adversity and also the things that I would encounter as I move up.
So outside of baseball, what was your life like? Did you have friends? Were you popular?
Yeah, well, sure. So no, I was really a quiet guy, kind of shy. It was kind of funny. It was I like to call it a Jekyll and Hyde. And even growing up, academically, I had a tough dad in terms of the academics. And academically, demanded a lot from us. But then my dad got transferred in his job to Buffalo, New York. And so he was commuting on the weekends or every other weekend. And then in ninth grade, that's when it started. I started blowing off school a little bit, hanging out at friends' homes. The enforcer was no longer home on the grades. And then I got into trouble with grades real quick. But that's about the time that the athletic career started blossoming in. So when my picture's in the paper every day, they tend to go a little easier on the grade end of it. In Penn Hills, I hate to say it, but, really, and I hate to say it, but shame on them, because you're not setting up your athletes for success in the future. You should have at least a 2.0 minimum GPA to be eligible, but they didn't.
Well, things have changed today.
Yeah, they're definitely different.
The coaches of teams are getting emails if their players' grades are slipping.
That's exactly right. And that's an important fact, because that coach is making an investment in a player. But back then, it was I could get straight D's and have one failing grade and still be eligible. Okay? And that's terrible.
Low barrier of entry.
Low barrier of entry. And it wasn't until I actually applied for college that the wake-up call came, that I'm going to have to go the junior college route. But before we get to that, I would just tell you that, again, asking about, was I popular? Was I this, that? Excuse me. Very shy. Very shy. In fact, what you're doing today is amazing, because I feared public speaking more than anything. I mean, anything. And here I am. I'm a popular athlete, picture in the paper. And when I say Jekyll and Hyde, I mean, off the field, I'm in a cocoon.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to anybody.
You're out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, out of my comfort zone. But when I was on the field, arrogant, cocky, just combative.
Yeah.
But when I get off, it was like
your identity is sort of gone when you're off the field.
It's gone. And even though people know who you are, I don't know why that was, but I literally, we used to call it a senior theme. I don't know what kids call it today. Maybe a senior project they have to do. But you had to present that. And I couldn't even present mine because I was too afraid to speak in front of the class. I would literally physically would not be able to speak.
What if it was a topic about baseball?
My senior theme was on that.
And you couldn't even talk
about baseball. Wow. Yeah. In fact, the name of it was called The Art of Making a Pitcher. And what I was discussing in there is all the physics principles of like the curveball and all the things on the field, and really addressing it from a scientific end.
So your passion and most familiar topic, you couldn't even talk about?
I could not even speak about it, no. And the same with Spanish class. You had to have a foreign language. And so a lot of times you had to go up and do a little speech, could not speak it. the English or the Spanish teacher had to take me to the library and let me do it one-on-one because the baseball coach and the athletic director were begging them to please make an exception for me so I could be eligible to play. But I physically would not be able to speak. And I don't know what to attribute that to be honest with you. I don't know where that fear came from. But that fear stayed with me for a very long time, even into young adulthood, to the point where I lost job opportunities because I couldn't speak.
I think public speaking is probably the number one fear that there is.
Hands down.
Yeah.
And people, I hate to say it, people would rather die than give a speech. They really would. And it's 100% true. And later I learned how to address that fear in life. But yeah, initially was very, very scared.
Are your parents still living today?
My mother is. My dad had passed away last year in June. And, but yeah, they were very young when they got married. They had 3 kids by the time they were 21. And so we weren't a privileged family in any way, shape, or means, but they provided for us and, high expectations. My dad worked hard and, really all of us grew up with a work ethic. And so in terms of that, did a wonderful job.
You say us, how many siblings do you have?
So I have 2 brothers. I have a brother that's 4 years younger. He's a chiropractor. I have another brother who's 9 years younger who was a good athlete as well. Pretty remarkable story there as well with the athletics. And then I have a sister who is 2 years older, and she's pretty well known in the circles of worlds because of her baton twirling skills. That she actually got a full scholarship to Ohio State, and also she was involved with pageants. My niece was Miss Butler, and they do the Miss Pennsylvania pageant. But
so an athletic family.
yeah, very athletic, very competitive family, and make you laugh. I mean, growing up, you ask about my parents, my childhood. We grew up in a time we didn't have games and videos, and we had Pong. That was the first game that came out, a little dot, and we were all mesmerized by that. But then my family, what they would do, family fight night every Friday. So my mom and dad would have a bowl of popcorn, and we would beat the crap out of each other. And then my dad would stop, and then he would teach us. Because
He
my
teach
dad,
you how to fight better?
yes, teach how to fight better.
Wow.
He would teach us how to box, some judo moves. He would teach us also wrestling. He was a big wrestler in college and high school, so he would teach us these moves and absolutely 100% teach us how to fight. Again, growing up in the city, he didn't come down to fight every battle. You're going to go fight him, and I'm going to teach you how to fight. And his philosophy was, look, he said, if you don't stand up for yourself, they will keep picking on you, because you might get beat up. You might. He said, but the one thing is they won't pick on you anymore because they're going to know that they're going to have a fight, that you will fight back. You won't be a target.
You can't do that today.
Nah, bullying is a little different today.
You have to send emails
yeah.
before you lay a hand on someone.
That's right. Or make sure they're in their safe space before we.
Right. And you can't call them and I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly right. Well, and again, like I said, my dad was really, really funny. The stories I could tell you there were, and I pardon if my hand goes down, it's my hand falls asleep because of the neuropathy I have in my hands. But yeah, I had a good upbringing. And even though we didn't have money, we really didn't have any money. The first house that we lived in was in Penn Hills. It was a split entry home, and to me that was like a mansion. To me from where I'd come from, and again, the downside though was Penn Hills was like the country to me, and so I started inviting friends from Wilkinsburg to come visit me, and then that ended quickly when my friend decided to take the gas can and write his name, Danny, in the neighbor's backyard and set it on fire. Again, that's what city kids do. And so then my parents would no longer pick up my friends.
Damn it, Danny.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, it was Penn Hills was quite a shock. But again, Penn Hills wouldn't change it because Penn Hills was a thriving community in the 80s. It's a little different today. It's not doing quite as well.
It's a little different.
Yeah, but the competition, I came at the right time because it was really, really competitive. On our football team, our varsity football team, for instance, we had 130 kids. So academically, when I did graduate from Penn Hills, I remember going to Pitt, And that was my first choice, to go to Pitt. And my plan was to play baseball, but also to try out for the football team because I always loved football. And I was actually a pretty good kicker in high school, really good kicker. So I figured I could probably make this team as the starting kicker and then get them to give me a shot in another position if I was there.
So academically, you obviously weren't doing well.
No, it wasn't doing well.
Were you banking on becoming a professional athlete?
Well, I mean, yeah, I really was, in a sense that, but I never looked at it in terms of a career, what I wanted to do with my life. And everybody knew how much money professional athletes made. And in fact, my guidance counselor in high school, she would ask me, "What do you want to do?" I'd say, "Well, I guess I'm probably going to be a professional baseball player." And she said, "Do you understand the odds of that?" I said, "Absolutely understand the odds." I said, "With all due respect, somebody does make it." I said, and to tell you the truth, I said, I have been exceptionally successful, and I'm the type of person who will not stop improving. I will do whatever it takes, and my attitude was a refuse to lose attitude in anything. And so I understood, but my backup plan was, if it doesn't work out, one of the sports, then I'll just go into business. I had a love for business, very entrepreneurial. Even when I was young, I was entrepreneurial. And again, had a successful father in business that, okay, I'll go into the managerial world, and that's what I'll do. And
So were your parents supportive of your path to being an athlete?
100%, yeah. 100%, yeah. They looked at it, I think, as they got older, that here's our meal ticket. We could retire early.
Go, Billy, go.
Yeah, that's about what it was too. But the first wake up call was, again, I go for this visitation to Pitt, and there was a young man from North Allegheny High School in front of me that was meeting. I don't remember who we were meeting with, but I heard he got rejected, and because his GPA was 1.97, and my SAT scores, I want to say, I don't recall, they were scored very differently back then than they are today, but I had really good SAT scores, which SAT scores, you would think with a low GPA they would be, but they weren't. I wasn't a dumb kid. I just did not apply myself. Like back then, homework assignments counted. And so for every 2 homework assignments you don't do, your grade drops 1. And so like algebra or college, whatever it was algebra 2, I think it was, I got A's on every test. But then I go up to check my grade and I failed. And I'd say, well, how is that? How could I fail? Well, you understand the syllabus of the class that was given to you. Every 2 grades you drop. Every homework assignment, you didn't do your homework. Well, how does that even make sense? I would tell the teacher. I can't cheat on algebra. We didn't have cell phones back then. I clearly know the information. How can you do that? How can you fail me like that?
So you're taking the test, but you go home and you don't do shit.
A's, but I'm not doing the homework. Always had the ability to retain information. And so, but again, the academic criteria was set up very differently back then. And, but anyway, so when my turn came at Pitt, they said, no, you're going to have to go the junior college route. You're going to have to graduate, get your associate's degree, and a GPA of whatever to get into any four-year school. That's NCAA rules, not our rules. And I said, oh, okay. That's bad because, I had a lot of opportunities to go a lot of places. And so now I'm thinking, now where do I go? And so to just kind of, really I was depressed for a little bit because I'm thinking, where am I going to end up at CCAC? Monroeville, which at that time, they didn't really have a good baseball team. There was, people weren't making it out of CCAC at that time. So long story short, I had performed in an all-star game. And it's the best athletes from all the teams in the local area at that time coming together. And I did exceptionally well in that game. I would say there was probably 100 college coaches, major league coaches in the stands. And like I said, I did really, really well. The phone was ringing off the hook, and people wanted to offer me scholarships. But again, we knew the academic situation, so we ended up having to look for a junior college route. And what we ended up settling into was a school called Gulf Coast. It's in Panama City, Florida. Gulf Coast was known to turn out a lot of baseball players. In fact, some local guys had gone to Gulf Coast. A guy by the name of Anthony LaCava, who lives in Oakmont today, assistant general manager with the Toronto Blue Jays. He went there, and I really thank him for helping me out in landing that school. He's the one that really went to work for me, and I'm always grateful to him for that. And then another guy that went to that school was Bill Mazeroski. His son, Darren, went to that school. And Anthony LeCava roomed with Darren Mazeroski. So Darren was actually one of the assistant coaches down there. So here I am. I'm going to go 1,000 miles away from home, but the connection was you do have a Pittsburgh guy back here in Coach Mazeroski, which helped out. But
So Pitt was your main choice, and,
well,
you were, I guess, sort of devastated when you didn't get in. But once you realized that Gulf Coast was churning out professional athletes, that was kind of like a
yeah,
saving grace.
and I'll be honest, the reason I wanted to go to Pitt, to be honest with you, I had just started dating my girlfriend, who's my wife today. So at that time, we had only been together about 6 months, and every new love is always good, and especially at that age. And I didn't want to leave her. And again, we didn't have cell phones and FaceTime, and we didn't have any of those tools available.
You're writing letters.
Writing letters. It take a week to get there. Yeah. And I didn't want to leave her. Like I said, I really loved her and just wanted to be with her. And she was going to go to Carlow College, is where she was going to go, and didn't want to be away from her. And but yeah, we ended up. My dad kind of took control, and before I know it, he signed the scholarship papers. And I remember visiting my wife, who again was my girlfriend at that time. She was babysitting, and she goes, "Did you make a decision on school? What are you doing?" I'm like, well, I'm going to a school in Florida. I've never seen it. I don't know anything about it because we didn't have the internet back then. So it wasn't like I could pull up pictures and see what the school even looked like. And she slammed the door shut on me, and I remember sitting on the porch saying, "Oh, that went really well." But again, you got to go where the offer is. You're going to get your education paid for, and that was the first time that I ever probably had a little nervousness about even the game, because I wasn't sure what to expect. And but at the same time, I was excited because I have this passion. I want to make it to the big leagues, and at some point, you got to go away. Can't stay home forever. But so, any questions that you have for me before that, or did I get to where you need to be? What do you want to ask me?
Well, I guess, I'm proud of you for going, despite your girlfriend being pissed, because I know this isn't about me, but I had an amazing job offer set in my lap when I was in my senior year of college. And my girlfriend at the time, which is now my ex-wife, said, if you go, we are done. Oh. And it was in Florida. Mm. So I stayed.
Yeah.
Tough decision, but she sort of made it an easy decision. Do I regret it? No, because I have 3 beautiful kids that came out of that. But I do wonder what my life would have been like if I would have went. And you did go. A lot of people wouldn't have. They would have felt the pressure from that girlfriend. If you leave, you don't love me, blah, blah, blah. Uh-huh. And I'm sure it wasn't easy to leave. You were young and you were nervous. And
it's never an easy decision.
Sure.
It isn't. And especially if you feel strongly about that person you're dating. I mean, and again, unfortunately, when we're young, and we know this because we're a little older, but you don't know everything when you're young. You think you do, but you don't. And even today, I have a phrase that I use. I said, every day is a choice. And it could be the smallest choice in the world. It could be the stop sign, whether you go left or right. Every choice is going to lead to a path of construction or destruction. And so weigh those decisions out as much as possible when you have the opportunity. And so, had I gone to Pitt, I'm not sure what would have happened. I don't know, because the things that I experienced when I did go to Florida were not just baseball oriented. They were life lessons that I learned. And it's really shaped who I became. When I went there, I stayed in the dorm initially when I went to Gulf Coast. Beautiful town, beautiful city. And again, big spring break place today. But when the season's over and tourism's over, a ghost town, a lot of unemployment. And so to give you one of the examples that I learned at a young age, again, I lived in a dorm. And that dorm was not like your typical dorms today that look like five-star resorts today. Very simple room. My room was so small that I literally could reach my hand out and probably reach my roommate's hand. That's how tight it was. We didn't have any appliances. I had a little hot pot. I had a microwave. But one of those examples was the dorm manager, who was hired by the college, He had a house next to the dorm. His responsibilities were to maintain the dorm, but also to make sure curfew was followed. Like we were expected to be in on weekdays by 11 o'clock. No girlfriends in the dorm, so his name was Joe. So one of the examples was there was times as a pitcher at Gulf Coast, if I wasn't scheduled to pitch, because I was based on how the rotation went, I may not make a road trip because they're not going to use me. And this particular case, Joe had a drinking problem. Everybody knew he drank. I mean, he had a problem, but he was raising a son as a single parent, and his son had some problems. I don't know what they were at that time. I don't even know how I'd categorize them today, but definitely some. I wouldn't say autism, but definitely some issues there. And his name was George. I used to take him when I do my laundry. So I kind of got a nice relationship with George because he was a good kid, super nice kid, a positive, upbeat, and he was young. He was probably about 9 or 10 years old at the time. And back in those days, I'd take him, we'd do laundry, and we would play Miss Pac-Man or something else, and I would spend time with him. And, thinking if I ever had to gain favor with Joe, the dorm manager, I'd take care of his son. Well, one night, the dorm manager, he got completely hammered, and his son came into the dorm. Bill, can you please help me? Can you please help me? Something's wrong with my daddy. Something's wrong with my daddy. So I went next door, went into his house, and he was drunk off his rocker. I mean, he was really, really drunk, and he was talking completely crazy. He had served in the Korean War, seen some other wartime. I mean, he was talking really crazy. And I knew if this got out, they're going to fire him. And so my friend from Syracuse, who was my catcher, came over. We both sat there just trying to calm him, in front of his son and just make sure he was going to be okay getting through the night. And Scott ended up having to leave because he was making the trip, the away game. I said, I'll stay all night. So I stayed all night with him. But as I was sitting there thinking, again, when you're young, you don't really have any responsibilities. You don't know what responsibilities like or what people go through. I didn't know his story, why he didn't have a wife or somebody else. But I had the most immense respect for this guy because he was doing the best he could. He's raising a son on his own. Obviously dealt with some really horrific situations in his life. I've never served in war or combat and seen people die or anything. But that's when, I don't know, I kind of gained a respect for more than what is on the baseball field or like people have responsibilities, parents, and we all grow up in different situations. And unfortunately, we're not all given the same ticket in life as far as, what we have. And some parents have it tougher than others and circumstances are tougher. But that was the first time that I realized that, yeah, life is not just about going to college or throwing a baseball or anything like that. And then to be honest with you, the relationships I developed with the guys on the team and hearing all their backgrounds and what they came through. And it was kind of funny because some of the guys were very well-to-do. And they were pulling up in those brand new Toyota Supras and very privileged. I grew up with, our third baseman was from Columbus, Ohio. And his family was exceptionally wealthy. And they were sending him $3-4 a week. In 1987, 88, you're talking a lot of money.
It's like,
you know what I mean?
10 grand today,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, a lot. And funny story about him is he didn't make it quite through the whole year. All that money he had, he was living out on the beach. He wasn't even living in the dorm because you only had to stay in the dorm for one semester. And then after that, they would let you move out if you wanted. But he moved out, and he had a beach house, and he was throwing a lot of parties. And in Florida in the 80s, man, it was like the Wild Wild West with, big time crack, cocaine, rap music. The guns were out in the open. You're talking Miami Vice days when it was wild. It was really wild. But he was throwing the most amazing parties, but he actually was logistically probably one of the biggest drug dealers while he was there because he was using the money to buy and then sell. And so literally when the FBI raids your home, it's a problem. So
some money destroyed.
Yeah, no doubt. And like I said, they took him away with a couple other guys, and you start seeing things, like I said, that I never experienced growing up in Penn Hills, and I saw racism that I never really experienced in Penn Hills, but I experienced it down there, and again, just a lot. Like I'll give you an example. Again, you're talking in the '80s where there was a lot of race problems in the '60s. When you had civil rights issues and things like that. But I meet a guy. He takes me home for dinner to introduce me to his parents, and just funny. I remember to this day going to his home listening to Guns N' Roses, Paradise City. I never heard rock music. I wasn't a rock guy, but I'm thinking, okay, maybe this family's a rock family. I bet it's good to meet people. I walk in. He introduced me to his dad. I said, hello, Mr. Etheridge. Pleased to meet you. And he said, where are you from? I said, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He said, Pittsburgh? I said, yeah, Pittsburgh. And then he flipped out on his son. Flipped out. Lee, what the hell? Bring a damn Yankee into my home. What the hell is wrong with you? Get his ass out of here. And he said, I just met this guy. He says, because of people like that is why we don't have slavery today. And they should be shining our shoes. Get his ass out of my house. What? Like what? I never, like, what are we talking about? Like, this is 1987, 80. I'm like, I never even heard of that.
It's not the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I never even heard of that. And yet, that still existed on a lot of that part, because even though it was Panama City, Florida, it was up on the panhandle of Florida. I used to call it L.A., Lower Alabama, because really, the Confederate flags, and there was places that still said black and white only. Like, that's just how they lived. And
segregation was wild, yeah.
Well, it was wild. And then even in practice, your own team, you had problems. I had I'm out in center field. One of my best friends was a black guy named Mario, and Mario was an exceptional athlete. He could have played any professional sport. 6'4", could run, jump, you name it. He literally could have been professional in any sport. He's out there, again, had become really good friends with him, and he was from Birmingham, Alabama. And here comes this first baseman. His name was Trey Bayless. He was from Mississippi. And he goes, and he says to me again, same kind of thing as that father said. Y'all effed up. Y'all effed up. What do you mean I effed up? He goes, yeah. And that's what he said. He said, if it wasn't for you, we used to tell boys like this taking care of us today. Like, we're on the same team, man. What is wrong with you? And here's this kid, Trey, going back to first base. I look at Mario, and I'm like, are you just going to take that? Like, because back home, he gets his ass kicked. So he's just going to take that. He said, Bill, he said, listen, you don't know what it's like to live in the South. He goes, I've been dealing with this all my life. He said, if I fought every time somebody insulted me, I'd be in jail or I'd be killed or strung up. He goes, because the KKK still exists down here. Trust me when I tell you that. You just learn to live with it. You learn to deal with it. He said, so it doesn't even bother me. I said, wow, man. And that's when I realized, again, things are not all the same as where we grow up, in just a different way of life.
So you're in another world.
Like in another world. Like in another world. It was, to me, it was so foreign. It was so weird. It was so strange. And at the same time, again, society was changing. But yet at the same time, I don't know, it was like his throwback to the 60s, 50, whatever. I don't, and then there was a lot of words that I didn't understand. I never understood them, like fixing. What does that even mean?
Well, it's no worse than Pittsburghese.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's true.
Red up.
They would say, I'm fixing to go to the mall.
Worse.
I'm fixing to do this. Mm-hmm. So I said to a girl down there, I said, what are you talking about?
What are you trying to fix?
I said, yeah. I said, what does that even mean? So she tells me, and I said, okay, that's not even in the dictionary, that word, the way you're using it. She goes, yeah, damn, author's probably a Yankee. Okay, the Standard Webster's Dictionary, you're right. You got me there. And then they would say things like, I made an A. Back home, we'd say, I got an A. I made an A. And I'd always say, well, how did you make it? Out of wood? What'd you do? And so, yeah, it was a big adjustment for me. But I will say this for him down south that time. Super friendly. I thought every girl liked me. I thought every girl, because they would walk past you and they'd say, hey, super charming, super sweet. Was a slower pace of life for sure. But I really, really fell in love with the area, with the beach, because again, the beach was there. And, but again, it really taught me a lot of life lessons in hearing the stories of teammates and what they went through. And one guy was from Venezuela. He didn't eat on a regular basis. And here's a guy, I mean, literally. And then another guy from Puerto Rico, same type of thing. He came from extreme poverty. And then again, that's the cool thing about it. All these guys came from other parts of the country. So you're hearing their stories and you're growing from that. And the basketball players were even more fascinating. The guys on the basketball team. Tell you a funny story about that. We actually roomed, there was only the baseball team and the basketball team roomed together, or stayed in the same dorm. Those were the two primary sports. There was no other dorms for any of the sports teams. And I became friends with a guy that was the star on the basketball team. His room was decked out. He's the only one in the dorm that had no roommate. And you went into his room, everything was customized. It was twice the size of any other room. And I'd say, Tony, how do you get all this stuff? He taught me about scholarship negotiation and how that works. Taught me the business side of scholarships. And he negotiated that in his contract, in order to come and be signed. And we had some things in common. That's why we became friends. We loved wrestling. And back in those days, with the exception of Tony, who had a TV in his room, there was only one TV in the lobby. Everybody else had to watch it. And Tony was in charge of the dorm, make no mistake about it. He was big. He was about 6'10". He probably went about 350. He's in charge. Nobody touched Tony. And we used to do a lot of slap boxing matches. And so it was always a competition between the baseball, basketball team. And I learned a lot from him. You want to, again, talk about, I was in the dorm literally by myself. I had no car, no vehicle. I had no way of getting out. I didn't have any money, really, to be honest. The college wouldn't allow you to work when you were on scholarship. So a lot of my time was spent in the dorm if I didn't have money to go do whatever. I never forget, it was a Saturday. I'm sitting in the dorm. He comes through the front door. We only had a payphone in the front. He calls his coach. He's like, get your ass over here right now to pick me up. And he said, my girlfriend just stabbed me and I need to go to the hospital. He hangs up the phone. I'm not bullshitting. I said, he starts watching TV. And I'm like, Tony, did you say your girlfriend stabbed you? Yeah. He shows me. There's a big gash in his stomach and he's blood everywhere and he's holding it in. And I'm like, if that happened to me, I'd be laying on the ground somewhere saying I'm dying. But again, he grew up in Miami. He was used to that violence. He had seen that kind of violence. I never experienced anything like that, ever. Not in Wilkinsburg, not anywhere. And I just was blown away by that. How does that happen? So it was really a level of maturity that helped me grow, helped me understand people. So many stories, so many people that I saw had so much potential that threw it away. We have a guy locally here that wanders the streets. And this happened in my second year. He was a local guy from around here, went to Gateway High School, and was an exceptional ball player and good-looking guy. But he made the mistake of going to too many parties on the beach and got hooked on a lot of drugs, hardcore drugs, and then the drugs took over. And then even when school was over for him, he ended up getting a job at the Waffle House, stayed down there, and then he ended up going to jail because he was stealing money from the Waffle House, buying drugs, trying to turn it around. And to this day, he's still hooked out on drugs. I'm surprised he hasn't passed, but you talk about a life completely ruined by your environment. And so you see these things and you're just kind of like, yeah, decisions have consequences for sure. So, but yeah, that's kind of a little bit of the things I saw outside of the field.
So let's get back onto the field.
Okay.
So did the Gulf Coast give you that ticket
They did.
that you were hoping for?
Oh, yeah. So Gulf Coast, I got a full scholarship. Coaches have a budget, and it works like this with all sports. So they get a budget. It might be $100,000, whatever your budget is. They're going to take that money and divide it out as many times as they can to land players. So your son, this is a good advice for the parents out there that might be watching this. They're going to start you low. They may say, well, we can do tuition, or we can do 50% off tuition. They can always go higher. And you want to try to negotiate higher. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's a negotiation process. But most people don't know the scholarship process. Because I knew that and I learned that, it helped me when I became a coach. Tony knew it. Yeah, the first education, exactly right. And it actually, when I went to Pitt, when I ended up going to Pitt, I negotiated a lot of things there. And so yeah, at the end of the year, it was also a very humbling experience, because you'd have to go in and do an exit interview with the baseball coach. And my exit interview was scheduled. I was outside the office. The door was open, could hear it. And there was a teammate of mine that came in from Louisiana. And he threw hard. He threw very hard. But he was only like 5'8", 5'9". And the difference between a pitcher that's taller and shorter is the trajectory at which the ball comes out. And his name was Matt Melder. And again, he threw hard, but he got lit up. Only had a couple wins that year. So the coach dropped him, stripped his scholarship, because they didn't negotiate that scholarship could not be taken out for anything other than academic failure. My dad was smart businessman, to know that, he negotiated my contract in terms of the initial phase of it, that there was no way for an injury or that it could be taken out. I guess it was somewhere in close to March, February, probably somewhere in February. I started developing tendonitis in my right throwing arm, and it was really affecting my game. And so I went to a doctor, and they prescribed me a drug called Feldene, which was an anti-inflammatory. And I started taking this Feldene, and the tendonitis eventually went away. But I noticed I was having major stomach pains with it, major pains that I've never felt before. And kept taking the drug. So then one day at practice, it was like 4 days before the season's supposed to open. I said, Coach, I don't feel good. I don't know if I have the flu or something, but I was sweating. I was pale. He goes, yeah, you don't look good at all. He goes, go home and rest. Just go home. So he sends me home. I go home, and I didn't take that dose that night of the Feldene, thank goodness, and went to bed. Just thought I had the flu. So I wake up in the middle of the night, sweating profusely, and I had to go to the bathroom, had to urinate, and I go to get up, and I can't get up. The whole room is spinning, literally spinning. So I dropped to my knees to crawl to the bathroom. And when I go to the bathroom, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm in the bathroom. I literally throw up blood, a lot of blood, and literally passed out in the process. I don't know, hit my head off the toilet, whatever it was, and I don't know how long I was out for, but when I did come to it, I didn't really know what happened. I look up in the mirror, and I have all this blood all over my face, all over my body. My roommate at that time, I wasn't living in a dorm at that time. I was living in a private place, townhouse. And I yell, Scott, can you come here? And he sees all the blood, and he's like, oh, my gosh. I'm like, you got to take me to the hospital, please. I said, call my coach. Let him know at the hospital. So I get into the hospital, and they're wheeling me in and asking me a bunch of questions. And then they said, do you think you can walk back to this room? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm feeling that spinning coming on again. So the spinning starts coming on again. Next thing I know, I passed out again. And I know I look bad, because when I must have only been out for a couple seconds. When I regain consciousness, I'm throwing up blood again all over myself. And when the people in the emergency room are looking at you like you're scary, it's scary. So then they throw me up on a table, and they basically came to the conclusion that I had ulcers, bleeding ulcers, actively bleeding. I'm bleeding a lot. I'd lost a lot of blood. So at that point in time, pretty scary. I'm 1,000 miles away from home. I have no family around. Nobody to come see me. Don't know what's going to go on. And, they had oxygen in my nose. And then all of a sudden now they're putting this tube in my nose. I just thought it was another oxygen tube. And I'm like, I'm good there. They're like, nope, we're going all the way down. Swallow. I'm like, what? I mean, swallow a tube? So I swallowed the tube, the GI tube. It was down my throat, into my stomach. Next thing I know, they're pumping my stomach. And, it wasn't good. And, it was a bad situation. And So again, you're all alone. Nobody there. Nobody to visit you. Nobody to call. And so my dad ends up flying down and got there the next day. Couldn't get any flights at that. I mean, at that time, Panama City didn't really have an airport. Very small, so you had to go into Atlanta, get a commuter plane, and then transfer from there. But he eventually comes see me in the hospital. And at that time, HIV was running wild, especially in Florida. And my dad's like, well, can I give him a blood transfusion? Like, no. The amount of blood he lost, you'd be in a bed right beside him no, he's going to need transfusions. So I get transfusions, and I'm really weak. Everything I busted my ass for, not only the academics, but all the physical conditioning. Because my goal was to be the pitcher of the year. And when I get out of the hospital, went to the ball field right away. The doctor's instructions were I shouldn't play any sports for the amount of blood I lost for like 2 to 3 months. That wasn't an option. My window for opportunity was right there and then. And I didn't tell my coach that. I wasn't telling anybody that. My mom happened to be a nurse. Wasn't going to tell her what happened to me. And I literally went to the field and, the doctor said, you're so weak right now, your immune system. You could come down with anything. You got to take it easy. I didn't. I went to the field. I started doing sprints up and down. And I'm like, holy shit, this place is like going round and round in circles. And this is an honest to God true story.
Yeah.
I didn't start the opening game because my coach wanted to wait a few days. But the first game I did start, I went out there and I was warming up and I called my catcher out. I said, Scott, I got a problem. He's like, what's the problem? I was like, man, for real. He said, honestly, this is the truth. I said, when you're driving down the highway on a hot day, you see that heat coming off the pavement, it's like wavy. I said, I'm not shitting you. That's what I'm seeing with you. You're like waving. I'm seeing like 3 of you back there. And again, that's from, my sickness. I haven't even been out of the hospital a week. I'm seeing 3 of you. He goes, well, throw it to the one in the middle. All right, good advice, whatever. So, so there I am. I'm pitching and getting the job done. And again, it's that refuse to lose attitude, that determination, being goal-oriented, having a real passion for your dream, and doing whatever it takes to make it. And I got through the game perfectly fine.
So I understand there's a game that essentially ended your baseball career.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. So again, we my second year there, 1989, and we were playing against a team out of Marianna, Florida. Marianna, that's how you say it. The name of the college was called Chipotle. Chipola. I'm thinking of the Mexican food. But so long story short, I had been out too late the night before. Was fairly confident in my abilities. This team was coming in for a 4-game series. They had to beat us 3 out of 4 games they had to beat us all 4 games to go to the state playoffs. They were the second place team. And I was doing interviews all week long on the news saying, oh, yeah, well, this game's going to be over in the first game because that's the one I'm pitching. Again, it was going to be broadcast on live TV. And again, very confident in my abilities. Had no reason not to be confident. But again, I was out very late the night before. Not to say that really had anything to do with it because I don't believe it did. But I'm warming up and I go out there and I just had a horrendous game. For the life of me, couldn't figure out what was going on. Didn't have any command of my pitches, which my strong point was always my control, my command was off the charts. And for some reason, did not have command for the first time in my life. Didn't know what was going on. So I ended up getting pulled by the 3rd inning and hit a lot of batters. I hit 3 batters in 3 innings. Some of those guys hit pretty violently. First guy between the backbones, knocked out their shortstop for the game. Another guy came out with a concussion. So again, throwing that hard, you can definitely hurt people. And so that day again was very depressing that I didn't end it, winning for our team. Well, our team ended up losing 3 games, 1 more game. We lose, we're not going to make it to state playoffs. And my coach asked me to throw relief, and I never had thrown relief before, ever. I said, yeah, whatever I got to do to help the team win, absolutely. So I was really sore from the day before, warming up, go out, bases loaded, nobody out, and wanted to redeem myself and, strike out the side. And at the end of the day, come back into the dugout. The adrenaline's kind of gone now. The pressure's off a little bit because all I have to do is go out and get 3 outs. And we're going to win the game. So I went out, and the first hitter I walked, gets to first. Second hitter comes up, lays a bunt down to move him up into scoring position for second base. I field the bunt, and I go to throw it back to second base to get the lead runner. And when I threw it, I felt something just shredded my arm. And nothing I've ever felt like that. Like I don't know what just happened. Felt like my arm wasn't even attached to my body.
This isn't even throwing a pitch. You were just
No,
throwing.
I was fielding a bunt
Yeah.
and throwing it back to second. Not even throwing a pitch. Throw it back, and all of a sudden, the pain was unreal. Couldn't even lift my arm at all. Coach comes out and he says, "Well, take a few more." I said, "Coach, I can't even lift my arm." So at that point, obviously, I'm not going to be in the game. And I go in, and we won, of course. So the guys are all celebrating, coaches are all celebrating, winning the conference and going to the state playoffs. And Florida's a big state for baseball. And only 8 teams made the playoffs, the state playoffs. And so that was a big deal to be able to get to the state playoffs. And no wild cards back then or anything like that. You had to win outright. So while everybody else is out partying, I am in the most excruciating pain at home imaginable. And I'm taking Tylenol and everything I can possibly take to try to offset the pain. Pain's not going away. We didn't have a great medical facility. We didn't. Wasn't like you have at Pitt or anything like that, or a team doctor. We didn't. We were a junior college. Great baseball program, but not the supporting things that you need. And I didn't really have a doctor down there to go see. But again, assuming that it's just some inflammation, it's just something that'll bounce back. So the state playoffs weren't going to start for 2 weeks. So I'm in the weight room trying to bring myself back, and it just really isn't happening. It got a little better, but not to the point where I should even remotely be near a baseball field. But I still tried to go out anyway and pitch in the state playoffs, and it was an utter embarrassment. I mean, I'm throwing ball. There was tons of college coaches there to see me, tons of professional scouts to see me. One of the coaches from Tennessee, SEC at that time, they had made me, everybody making me offers. Again, Tennessee was in the SEC. They said I'd already be their number 1 pitcher if I transferred in. I'm also thinking 10 hours closer to home so I can see my girlfriend, on a more regular basis. But then they weren't sure if I was going to start. And guy from Tennessee says, "Well, why wouldn't he start? He's your number 1 pitcher." My coaches were trying to hide the fact that I got hurt. Pardon me. And they didn't want to ruin my chances for anything, so they were trying to protect me. But then when it's the day before, they got to be at least honest and forthcoming. And so, yeah, I mean, that was Darren Mazrowski. That was his son. He was telling the guys that I was hurt. They weren't sure what the extent of the injury was. So, of course, back that up with a horrible performance, velocity way down. I got dropped like a hot potato, literally by everybody. And ruined my chances in the Major League draft just because everybody knew I was injured and nobody knew the extent of the injury. Not like the medical facilities today. They can assess it and give you an outcome. So it wasn't until the state playoffs were over that I came home. We could get a full scope of the injury. Had a pretty good doctor named Dr. Bradley. He's actually the Steelers doctor today. You couldn't even get an appointment with him back then. And he was famous for some surgeries he had done on some big league players like Oral Hershiser and some other guys. The only reason I got an appointment was because my mom was a nurse at St. Margaret's, so she hooked me up with an appointment. And I'll never forget the worst of this day. He said, "I don't know how to tell you this, kid." He said, "But your pitching career is over." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Isn't there some surgery we can do?" He says, "You have what's called an atrophied rotator cuff. Not a tear. You have an atrophied." I said, "I don't even know. What does that mean?" He said, "Well, in crude terms, imagine you have a block of Swiss cheese." He said, "You've taken that block of Swiss cheese, and because of the neuropathy," he said, "all the issues, the blood flow, you have a sciatic nerve, it runs." He said, it's worn down to the point where it's so thin. And what was happening when you were pitching down there is essentially every time you were throwing a pitch, when you were losing control, your arm was dislocating and then going back into place. You could keep trying to throw this way." He said, "But you're going to end up with a metal plate in your arm." He said, "And you'll never be able to raise your arm higher than shoulder level. You'll never be able to throw a ball with your kids if you have kids. He said, I'm just telling you what the future is. He said, your baseball career is pretty much over. Okay, what the hell does he know? I'm going to tough it out. I don't need to hear that shit. So I ended up, ironically, didn't want to. My coach got on the phone from Gulf Coast, got me 5 other offers, just based on his credibility, and some of them were some really good schools, and one of them happened to be Pitt, and I didn't want to go to Pitt at that time. I didn't, just because it's a much better school today in terms of the baseball program and things of that nature. But I still wanted to go down south, where my best opportunity to be drafted was. But
You felt like you were being demoted.
oh, 100% demoted. Well, I used to make jokes about it. Be careful with karma. I would pitch in the bullpen down at Gulf Coast, warming up before game. I don't have a good outing today. I might end up at Pitt. Be careful what you say out in the air. Be careful. And honestly, so then I went to CCAC here for a semester, to try to get more rehab time on my arm to be able to transfer in the spring for the main season. And so what happened was, it wasn't getting better. It wasn't getting better. So I had to face the reality that I guess this is the end of my career. My girlfriend's going to Carlo College still, so I guess that's the consolatory that my girlfriend's here. At least I get to see her. And I did transfer to Pitt. Got a really nice scholarship. Scholarship they don't usually give to baseball players. And you talk about that negotiation thing. So I would just tell you that thanks to Tony and everybody taught me about scholarships. When I negotiated to come in, I said, I want not only my full ride, I want my books paid for. I said, but I also need this much money. Okay, it was a pretty nice amount of money. Trust me on that one. And then I also negotiate my own room on away games. I get my own room. I don't want a roommate. So all these things negotiated into my contract. And needless to say, half of that money went to half my wife's down payment on an engagement ring. And then I didn't want to live down there. So I commuted actually from Penn Hills, was still living at home. And I'd have to every day get on to practice at 6 in the morning because we had to use, it was called Trees Hall. I don't know if they still have Trees Hall down there, but we had to share it with like the track team, the basketball team, everybody. But I quickly realized what a difference in programs. What a difference. And it was rough because I felt like a complete failure. And I'm going in there and, man, we go in there and I see this locker room. I'm like, well, this isn't too bad. I said, the one I had at Gulf Coast is much nicer. Coach said, well, no, that's not our locker room. He's like, that's the basketball team's. Okay, where's our locker room? It's like this row of lockers, like in high school. It wasn't even a locker room. It was just a row of lockers. I'm like, are you serious? This is your locker room? Well, the other thing I did, too, is they gave me the Pitt issued attire that I'm supposed to wear in practice. I'm like, what the hell is this shit? It's like a heavy sweatshirt. I'm not wearing this in practice. So I just wear my own my golf coat that I'm comfortable in. And my first practice, literally, first official practice, I got off to a really bad start because I'm the only guy commuting. Wasn't aware of like the traffic patterns, and then finding a parking space in the Hill District. Good luck with that. So I finally get to practice and walk in, and there was 4 captains up front, and nobody knows who I am really. And one of the captains says, "My man, it's like you're 5 minutes late. Take 5 laps." They have an indoor track there. They're not. It's not like a full quarter mile or anything. Take 5 laps. That's the rule. Every minute you're late, you take a lap. And I basically made some really derogatory remarks back to him. Crude, very crude. And I'm taking shit from any of these losers. And the reason being is because I didn't have any respect for him because the kid that played shortstop, their starting shortstop, he was from Baldwin. He tried out for my team at Gulf Coast and got cut after the first day. And he's the starting shortstop at Pitt. So that tells you the level of talent that's there. And here I am on the island of misfit toys. Excuse me. And
So you felt superior,
100%.
even though you're on their level now.
I'm on there.
You're injured.
Yeah. And
You
I guess
were- yeah.
in the back of my mind, I'm going to rise up above that injury. I'm going to regain the old form. Don't give a shit what Dr. Bradley said. I'm determined not to listen to that. I'm going to get back. And so, yeah, I started. And then immediately one of the assistant coaches came over when I said that to the captain, and he's screaming in my face. And he's a local guy. I won't mention his name because a lot of people wouldn't know his name. And he's screaming my name. You will listen to the captain, and you will wear your pit-issued attire. And he keeps screaming at me, and I never had a coach ever in my face, ever. And I said, you better get out of my face. I'm telling you that right now. Who do you think you're talking to? I said, you midget man. He was a small guy, about 5'8" or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not taking your shit. I don't take shit from anybody. I never did. I was always a fighter. And I'm not taking your shit. Get out of my face. You're not going to talk to me like that. He turns around to the head coach. He said, Bobby, we got a problem over here. And Coach Lewis says, Bobby Lewis, he says, Donnie, let him go. Let him go. He can do whatever he wants. Let him go. And so that set the precedent right there. When the rest of the team saw that they couldn't understand that. Like, why is this guy getting special privileges? And so it didn't set me up really for the type of, friendships that you'd want. But when people found out where I came from, in my credentials, a lot of respect. And every pitcher on that team wanted to get to know me, wanted my advice. Could I help them with their mechanics? Could I help them increase velocity? I literally became like the pitching coach besides being a player. And that year was tough. It was a tough year. Had some highlights, but realized that Dr. Bradley was not wrong, that I was not going to become a major league pitcher. But I did have a lot of great highlights in that year. Funny as hell, a lot of stories, that's for sure. Just to keep it humorous so it can entertain your listeners and watchers. We leave Pittsburgh, it's like 55 degrees, and we are playing against, what was the name of school? Providence, Rhode Island. We went to Providence, I guess it was Providence. So we fly into Rhode Island, and there's like 5-6 inches of snow when we fly in. And all the players are pissed. So it's like, well, I don't want to just spend in a hotel room for the whole weekend. We could be back home. We could be doing, if the games were canceled, then we'd have a whole weekend off. So all these players, I'll never forget it because that movie Lean On Me was out. And with Morgan Freeman and everything else. And these players, man, they get hammered. They're drinking all night, and they are completely hammered. Now, I don't drink, but I'm still going to hang with them, because why not, And I love movies. So I'm watching movies. All of a sudden, there's a knock at the door. It's the coach. Let's go. Breakfast. Coach, what are you talking about? Look at all the snow out there. Well, they have tarps on the field. So we go there, and all these guys are completely wasted, and you're playing ball. So, yeah, that was a pretty crazy, crazy thing. But one thing special happened on that trip. Our third baseman, who I was supposed to transfer into Pitt, and the deal was not only do I pitch, but I get an opportunity to compete for a position. Because I was a hell of a hitter in high school, shortstop, hell of a hitter. And my coach show in Florida was old school. You're either a pitcher or a position player. So when I negotiated that contract, I wanted a chance to play a position when I didn't pitch. Because it's horrible as a pitcher. You're sitting in the bullpen for 4 days knowing you're never going to get into the game. And if you're making millions of dollars, you're content with that. But I wasn't. I want to be in the game. I want to play. So at the end of the day, third baseman, who I didn't get my opportunity yet for whatever reason, they still didn't give me my opportunity. He takes a ball to the face in pregame before the first game, shatters his nose, broken nose. So now they're going to give me the opportunity to play third base when I'm not pitching. So the first game I did pitch, but the next 3 I played at third base. And I went 11 for 12 in those games, those 3 games, and got all kinds of honors that week, Big East Player of the Week, whatever. But it was funny because when I get on the bus, all the pitchers are screaming, let the pitchers hit, let the pitchers hit. And I remember a guy was getting interviews up there, and they're saying, well, geez, man, that was a remarkable plate appearance. What's your average? I'm like, whatever it is after this series, because that's the first time they let me hit. And so, yeah, it was So it was good. It was good to be back in the box, swinging a bat again, and and if I had some good coaching, like in terms of consulting, counseling, or a dad that even knew the game, they would have said, "Hey, Bill, you can play all the positions on the field because I was a hell of a catcher. So you can play all the positions. You can just forget pitching, do something else." But I didn't have that counsel back then. I didn't have anybody to direct me, and I just figured it's over. I mean, people know me as a pitcher, and I'm not a pitcher anymore. But yeah, that season was a real grind. It was, but I did see a lot of things, experienced a lot of things. Traveled first class. In Florida, you travel by vans. It was like you're in the minor leagues. You get $5 for a Whataburger at the end of a road game series. Pitt, we traveled like big leaguers. My per diem was like $60 a day in Florida. I mean and back in 1990 actually. It's a lot of money, especially for a day. I'm like, wow, coming from a place where I barely ate in a dorm, I'm eating $20 breakfasts, and I'm just like, I really enjoyed that end of it. Like, man, how good is it to be a big leaguer if this is the treatment I'm getting at just a college? Stayed in the best of hotels, and so yeah, that was an enjoyable experience on that end. But not really close to any of those guys. I'm very close with the guys I played with in Florida, but not really close with anybody I played at Pitt. Because they thought I was an asshole, and I was.
I was gonna say, sounds like you kind of were.
Oh, I was an asshole, 100%. And I'll tell you why too. It goes both ways. Because, like to give you an example, the only game I only won one game that year. I won one game. We had nobody hit the ball, nobody scored runs ever. And I remember we were playing against Georgetown, my only win, and got Big East Pitcher of the Week that week, but I hadn't won a game yet. And I'm laying on a high jumping pad from the track team. It was a 2-hour delay because of snow that came down. It was only 34 degrees. And back in Florida, you never pitched in 34 degrees. You'd cancel a game if it was 45 degrees. But I'm laying on this track mat listening to Whitney Houston. Honestly, I can remember the song. It says, "Give me one moment in time where I'm more than I thought I could be." And I'm saying to myself, you know what? Doesn't matter. I'm not going to make the big leagues today. I'm not going out with a goose egg on this team. Whatever I got to do to win a game can be my send-off, can be what I'm going to do, whatever it takes to win today. And I laid on that mat and made sure my mind was going to be in the right place. And then I went to the field, and it was against Georgetown. And after 5 innings, 0-0. First game at that time was 9 innings. 7, 0-0. 8 innings, 0-0. I'm still in there. Georgetown had already gone through 2 or 3 pitchers because of how cold it was. After 9 innings, we're still 0-0. Now, keep in mind, I'm coming off an injury. And I walk off the field, and coach says to me, "How do you feel about going in the 10th?" I said, "How about you feel scoring an effing run so I could get this over? Like, this is ridiculous." So, end of the day, kid hits a home run for us in the bottom of the 10th. They carry his ass off the field. I'm only the guy that went 10 innings, scored his baseball in 34-degree weather, but I got that win. And that was a life lesson, even though it wasn't going to get me to the big leagues. It was like, the mind is a powerful thing. And if you can conceive and believe in it'll happen. What we program our mind with is so important, no matter what it is, whether it's sports or our work, our family. The way you think is so critical in getting what you want out of this life. And it taught me that. It really did teach me that. And but to this day, I think about that song when I hear it. And I decided not to go into my senior year because I was too embarrassed by my performance. Had so much pride, which wasn't the best answer again. Could have used some consultation at that time. Somebody that could have really given me good advice. Why would you give up a scholarship? At least get your education paid for. Who cares about your pride? That's the dumbest thing in the world, to give up your scholarship. But I did. I gave up my scholarship and just wanted to walk away from the game because I didn't want to be embarrassed anymore. I was embarrassed. And, but again, with the right direction, who knows what could have happened. But, okay, forced me to get on with life a little faster. And that's exactly what I did.
So your dream was crushed.
Crushed.
You played ball at around 190 pounds, you said.
Yep, 190 pounds, yep.
If you don't mind me asking, what do you weigh today?
Oh, Lord.
Ballpark.
Well, to be honest with you, Sean, I don't even know what I weigh today because I can't get on a scale. I can't get to my feet. If I could get to my feet don't even fit on the scale because of the size of my legs. But I would tell you this. When the lymphedema, I'll back up and say, my highest weight ever at one point was around 560 pounds. But believe it or not, even at 500 pounds, because I was such a good athlete and still in like weight room good shape and strong, very strong, I still could move that body weight around, shoot 3-pointers, golf still. People were shocked, like, I mean, look at this fat guy. Holy hell, like, how does that happen? But what happened was the injuries from the past started creeping up on me. I didn't take care of them when I was younger. Knee injuries, things of that nature. Again, growing up in a time when you just didn't see the doctor, you toughed it out. That was the mentality back in the 70s, 80s. But then things started getting bad, and then I ate a lot of food and calories deliberately when I was in powerlifting. But then when I got into real life, the workplace was a different animal. I still wanted to approach it in a way that I wanted to be successful. And in fact, when I went to Chuck E. Cheese at that time, I don't know how many stores there were in the nation, maybe about 250, 300 locations. And in fact, the company I went to work for, they owned 5 locations in the area. They were also the largest owners of Wendy's franchise. They call them the McKnight Group or the Rudolph family. Very successful. And I worked for them in every Chuck E. Cheese in the area. It was West Mifflin, North Hills, Monroeville, you name it, I worked there. And I was really good at it. And but when was it? It was 1999. I was working in the Monroeville location. And they also owned bowling centers. And they owned one in Harmerville, which for a while went by Olympic Lanes, but then it was changed to Funfest Entertainment Center. So they had asked the district manager at that time who they thought would be most qualified out of the managers of Chuck E. Cheese to go to the bowling center, who they thought would be able to adapt to that concept the quickest. And they selected my name, and so the boss comes to see me, and he had said, I'd like you to go on to Funfest. And I said, well, I really don't want to go down there. I said, because my second daughter was being born in 99. And at that time, there was theoretically a chance I was going to go work with my father. He worked for McDonald's. At the end of the day, I get transferred to Funfest in 1999. And basically he told me, he said, when the profit margin drops below the real estate value, then we're going to close it up and we're going to make it into a strip mall, little strip mall, because the properties, they owned all the property there. I said, again, I don't want to go down there to close the place up. Because we're not asking you to close it up. If you can turn it around, we'll keep it open. Well, I went down and really just to get right to the pace, I mean, I turned it around substantially with a lot of techniques, and I mean, turned it around substantially. You're talking about increased sales, and again, we're not talking about big business here. We're talking about small business, but more than $3 million annually, okay, which is a lot of money in small business, and had complete control running the place. Because at that time, my boss was involved in other things. They had owned a Rita's company, so he was out of town. So I really didn't have anybody that I had to answer to. I had to put together the numbers, submit them to the main office, and then we would have P&L meetings. But by that time, I was pretty good at the numbers. I had learned my lessons. And end of the day, but it was still the stress of always having to increase sales, the stress of always having to answer emails. I was on vacation. You were never on vacation. Nonstop calls. I mean, literally. One point, I was in South Carolina with my family, Myrtle Beach, and I valued that time with my family, like everybody does. And I'm getting calls. You need to come back early. Cut your vacation early. I have questions. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was just, I hated the holidays. Between Christmas and New Year's, I absolutely hated them because that was the busiest week of the year. All the kids are off school. You're going to get crushed every night, extended hours. But there wasn't a New Year's Eve I didn't spend down there. And my New Year's Eve was forever. And when I mean forever, it means New Year's Eve, I'd go in around, 10:30 in the morning because we had major programs all day and all night. And you're talking about, the last party of the night would be a church that would come in at 3 in the morning, which is actually New Year's Day, and stay till 6 in the morning. Man, it took a toll on me. So through the years, you just start eating, stress eating. I never really ate at work because I'm on my feet all the time. It's a big place. And a lot of times you would just stress eat. I would come home late at night, veg out in front of the TV, and just eat and to disappear for a couple hours. My days off, Sean, and I'll be on. And listen, you don't get to be this size without being a food addict. There's no way I was a food addict, 100%. It took me a lot of years to admit that, because I used to say, well, I'm still in great shape. To me, a food addict was someone who had to hide a Snickers bar and eat it when no one's looking. That wasn't my case. In my case, it was food addiction at the right time to zone me out. You'd almost go into like my blood sugar. I couldn't even imagine what it was back then. It would zone me out. I'd be able to sleep, relax, reset for the next fight, and then go. And I'm telling you, again, the things I'd eat on my days off, and my kids, were in school. My wife at that time actually was a substitute elementary school teacher here in Plum. But this is true, not an exaggeration. Lived here in Holiday Park. I would drive down 286, and I would go to Burger King. And I'd get 3 breakfast sandwiches, their croissant sandwiches. I'd get some of their hash browns. And then I would go to McDonald's, and I would pick up like 3 sausage McMuffins.
In the same trip.
Yeah, in the same trip. A couple hash browns. And then I would go to Shop and Save. Okay? And in the same trip, I would go get like some grotesque snacks that I liked. It was always Doritos, or not Doritos, it was Cheetos. They used to have these wheels, these Cheeto wheels, with Swiss cheese and chocolate milk, and then whatever else was going to come up on the radar. And then I come home. I love movies. I'm going to put movies on. This was my escape from reality. Some people drink, some people take drugs, but I'm eating all that food in one sitting. Couldn't wait for lunch. That's breakfast. Couldn't wait for lunch. And I mean, what in the world is wrong with you? Like, what in the world? And again, I was under this false impression that I was okay because I could still move and do all the things, or I got this. I'm in control of this. Anytime I want to change it, I can. And then what happened was, as you age, it wasn't just the calories. It was the ingredients in the food that was ripping my organs to shreds, and I didn't know it. And then somewhere in my 40s, boom, it all started going downhill. And I didn't know I was a diabetic. Probably went with uncontrolled diabetes for years. And it was only until I went up to see my daughter cheer, or she was a dancer on a dance team at Slippery Rock. She would dance for the basketball teams. It wasn't until then that I realized I got to go get seen, because I was on the Parkway driving, and those big green signs, I couldn't even read it. It was so blurry, I couldn't even read it. And I was drinking about, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, about a case of water a day. Like 16.9 ounce bottles of water, a case a day. I could not quench my thirst. And had to go to the bathroom every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes. Nonstop, all day, urinating. Drinking, urinating. I could never quench that thirst. And what normal person doesn't realize there's a problem there? But again, I was always conditioned not to go to the doctors. So I finally I started going to the doctors, and they said, yeah, you have diabetes. But then my blood pressure, on average, I'm not even joking, 260 over 160. And they'd be like, you need to go to the hospital. I'm like, well, that ain't happening, because I've got a meeting today and I cannot miss it. I cannot miss my meeting today. Well, then you might be dead. I'm like, well, then I guess I won't have to worry about the meeting. I can't take the chance of losing my job. I got to be there. I have to be there. And so, no, I never did get the blood pressure. So uncontrollable high blood pressure, I'm sure, damaged my organs over the years. But then I finally get on the insulin and everything else, and still not controlling that food addiction. A lot of people, I hate to say it, but, a lot of people with diabetes will control by insulin. Humalog, whatever. They say, well, I'm going to eat that cake and just shoot myself with Humalog. Well, I never liked the short term. I didn't like I didn't manage it that way. I wasn't like that at all. But I wasn't helping my case. I wasn't eating the way I should be eating. I wasn't getting bigger, but my A1C was still very, very high. And again, continued to do damage. And there was times at work I own a pizza shop in Plum, and there was times when I was at work when I first opened that my blood sugar would be so high I would see black spots going across the room. Like, I know it was high. There was times my blood sugar, it wouldn't even read. I don't even know what the highest reading was on when I take my blood, but it was so high that I knew I could, because I couldn't, like, your whole body changes when your blood sugar's that high. And yet I'm still operating, under these conditions. And so, yeah, that's what really, at that point, I had really dug a bad hole and still didn't get out of it. And it wasn't until 2019 that my world pretty much came crashing down. And that's why I ended up here. And I've been here since 2019. So for your viewers, that was before the pandemic. They think the pandemic was long. I've been locked down before the pandemic, and I'm still locked down.
7 years now.
Yeah, 7 years, and that's when everything changed. I was here, and I noticed some swelling in the scrotum area, and had an infection, I thought, of some sort. And again, the workaholic in me, because we had 3 locations at that time, I didn't want to miss work. So I said, well, I'm going to shoot up to UPMC here in Monroeville. Maybe they can hook me up to an IV, get me some antibiotic, because my scrotum had swollen to about the size of a softball. And I'm like, okay, give me the shot, or I got to get back to work the next day. I go in, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're not qualified to handle this. Like, handle what? They want to life flight me down to Presby. I'm like, what are we talking about here? They're like, you have a flesh-eating bacteria in the scrotum. This could kill you within 24 hours, really. They're like, you're lucky you came in tonight. So they fly me. Well, no, I wouldn't let them take me in a helicopter. I said, just take me. It was the middle of the night. Take me in an ambulance. I don't want to be in a helicopter, please. I have fear of flying. Just please. Not to mention, I don't even know what that costs. Who knows what that costs? But they take me down to Presby. Doctor explains what's going on, and if we need to pause, let me know. So we take down to Presby, and the doctor says, okay, we're going to go in, and we're going to cut away anything that we feel is going to harm you, or we can't let it spread. So they do. They take me in for the operation, come out, and they say, yeah, we got a lot of it out. It should be okay. It should be healed up, but we got to go in for one more operation tomorrow to make sure that we got it all, because we can't miss anything with this. Okay. No big deal. Do what I just did the first night. Whatever. I'm knocked out. I can't feel anything done, Go in for a second operation. When I come out of that operation, wow. Game over. Come out. I had this big, giant wound vac on my stomach with 1 million tubes going everywhere. My left foot I couldn't even feel. And I'm like, okay, can someone explain what we did? What is going on? Doctor said, yeah, we had to remove 85% of your scrotum. Like 85%. What are you talking about? Like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you give me the choice? What are you talking about? I was like, well, what's holding the testicles in? He goes, well, right now, that's what the wound vac is doing. He said, that's the kind of thing that you have on a battlefield. And I'm like, okay, did this just happen? I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. Like, did you just take off my scrotum without asking me? Like, you want to talk about sitting in a room. That's not like giving up a few hits to a team. It's your body, and I'm just like, wow, what in the hell? So then I had to go in for more surgeries. And then ultimately, when we get to the end, I think it was 14 surgeries I had in a matter of like 14 or 15 days, whatever it was. Now, if you can believe this, at the same time I'm going through that, I develop another bleeding ulcer in my stomach. So now I'm losing blood from the bleeding ulcer. I've got this horrific surgery going on. And then the guy says, well, here's what we can do, we think. We think that we can he said, we think we have enough left that we can seal you up. Okay. And he said, so that was the plan. They had to bring a specialist. There was only one guy in the Pittsburgh area that could do that kind of surgery. So when I finally came out of surgery, I don't know how many sutures it was. I had like 38 sutures in that area. Very painful, very, very painful. I was laying on my back in my bedroom for a long time. And it's quite painful, to say the least, in that area. It's painful, especially when they're doing things. And to be honest with you, crazy me, okay, there was times they had to do things that I knew the doctors were uncomfortable doing because they knew how painful it was going to be. And they would tell me it's going to be really painful. And they would try to shoot me with like a topical. They said, but it's still going to hurt. So I literally would just grind my teeth and pretend I was honestly captured by ISIS and I wasn't going to talk. I'm not going to show any pain. I'm not going to let them see me have any pain. I'm going to be a man and take that pain. So I had a threshold of pain. And so finally, I get home. How do I pick up with life from here? So the plan was to let me heal for 6 months. They would bring me back in for surgery, take a skin graft off my leg, rebuild the scrotum, and then I could get back to being a little bit normal. The guy's like, well, we don't know what it's going to look like. I said, what the hell do I care? I'm in my 50s. Could look like a catcher's glove for all I care. I just want to be a normal person. Because one of the testicles they put in the groin out in the open, and one was in what was left of my scrotum. And I didn't know this until I had my follow-up appointment. They never told me they were doing that. So they sent me home, didn't give my wife instructions, didn't tell me. I'm laying in that bed with this big swelling in my groin area. I'm thinking I'm getting an infection. I call the doctor's office who did the surgery, and I was supposed to see him in 10 days, but it had to be 3 weeks because he was out of town. He was in Las Vegas for a convention. They're like, well, just go to the emergency room. Well, I don't want to do that. So I waited out 3 weeks and ended up pulling out some of my own tubes, looking at YouTube videos and doing some of my own stuff. So I go in to see this doctor, and I said to him, you know, I got a lot of pain on my left side. There's swelling there. You know, I don't know. I said, what, is that normal or what is that? He goes, well, that's your testicle. That's where I put the other one. I'm like, what? Why didn't you tell me you were putting that in? Like, here I am getting ready to go to the emergency room. Who knows what they would have done? They would have dug into that. Who knows what they would have done? I don't even know what's in there. Here I am looking at thinking I'm going to get an infection again. And he said, well, you know, like, I just couldn't believe he didn't tell me. And then, and this doctor, this again, show you, I don't want to grotesque your viewers to be, but he starts asking me these questions. And I'm like, well, you should have told somebody that, really. You should have told somebody. He said, and I got all these sutures still in there that he's going to take out. He says, well, have you any problems moving your bowels? I said, well, I'm really not moving my bowels. That I'm in a bed. I'm in a bed. I you know, it's pretty painful what you did here. I said, I got tubes and wires still going everywhere. I said, then here's the humor for you have any problem getting an erection? Now, keep in mind, when he did this surgery, my wife's going to love me saying that part out, but not only did they pin everything down, but they took the head of the penis and inserted it like into my body and stapled it. I have no idea why you'd have to do that medically. I'm not a doctor. I guess they said to me it was about urine, so that the urine would not infect, whatever it was. But I didn't really think that was necessary. And I said to him, are you kidding me? You just asked me that. Do I have any problem getting all those staples in there? Do you really think that's what I'm thinking about it? Do you think I could get aroused right now thinking about that? Think about that logically, what you're saying. And that's the last thing on your mind when you're in pain. And then I got to tell you, you know, when you eventually get a shower, everything's gone from the right side. You don't even feel like the same human being. Now, ironically, I looked up that particular infection. It affects about 1 in every 100,000 men. I was one of the lucky ones. And then there was a 73% suicide rate among those people that did get it, because it's life-changing, it's life-altering, your whole manhood. Yeah, didn't feel, and it's okay because, again, I mean,
Luckily, you were older.
yeah,
you
I was
had
older.
Children already.
Yeah, I had my kids, exactly. If I'd have been a young man, it would have been devastating. I get it. If I'd have been a young man, I'm not really even sure how I would react to that, because I don't know how that would work when you meet someone. I don't know how that would work. It might freak them out. But in my case, then what happened was, again, I was supposed to get that reconstructive surgery in March. And what happened was it got canceled because of the pandemic. And so they considered that elective surgery. So now here I am not getting that surgery. And then in my current condition, I'm worried about, because none of us knew about anything. It was all new to us, the pandemic. We just didn't have enough knowledge on it. And I'm worried about that virus is looking at me like I'm a buffet. So again, I become less active because I don't want to go out in crowds. I'm kind of hiding myself back. I'm using curbside where I could have been using the exercise to be walking around. And that really, really did a number on me. Well, again, shame on me for not exercising in the house and doing what I should have been doing. And then my health, I was still determined to come back. But again, because of the way those things were located, I couldn't sit on a chair like at the pizza shop any longer, because if I sat on that chair and got up, it'd be like someone hitting you there. And only a guy understands that feeling. And you can't deal with that all day. Like, you just can't. And so ultimately, I'm dealing with that. And then about a year and a half later, I started having problems. I couldn't breathe. Long story short there, I had to get a pacemaker put in because my heart level it dropped to, I was beating it around 28, 29 is where, on the pulse ox is where I was at. My oxygen levels were substantially low. I could not breathe, no matter what, I couldn't breathe.
Isn't normal like 90?
Yeah. Yeah. So normal oxygen levels for most, even today, as sick as I am, I can still hit 94, 95. But yeah, so the heart was so weak that it wasn't going to pump. But I go in, and once again, we're going to take you down to Presby for this. I'm like, for what? They're like, we have to get you into surgery tonight. I said, what are you talking about, Doc? Tonight? What do you mean? I had never had problems with my heart ever before, ever. Even though I was big, I never had problems with my heart. And he said, yeah, you're in congestive heart failure. He said, I'm telling you right now, we got to get you in. I said, can I get a second opinion? He said, I'm going to talk to you like I talked to my brother. You can get a second opinion. You might live through tonight, and maybe tomorrow if you're lucky. He goes, but you will be dead by the end of the week. You'll be dead if you don't get surgery. So you hear that, and you're like, well, okay.
Let me think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a choice at this point. I got to go. If you tell me I'm going to be dead, then I guess I gotta go. Got to listen to the doctor. I'm not a doctor, so go down. Okay, gonna take me in for pacemaker surgery, and there was a problem with the anesthesia. I'm on the operating table, and I'd asked everybody there that looked at my chart, how does this compare to what I went through back in 19? Because I'd been through so many surgeries, tough experiences in there. I said, just give me an idea what this is like. And they're like, oh, no, this is nothing compared to what you went through. You went through bad stuff in 19. Okay, great. So that reassures me a little bit. But I did have to warn them. They were going to run a line up through my leg as a backup. I said, you got to go through the right side because there's too much going on the left side. Explain to them what's on the left side ahead of time. And anesthesiologist was having a really difficult time. And I could tell the surgeon was getting really frustrated. Older guy, nice guy, great bedside manner. Well, long story short, it wasn't normal at all. So when I come out of surgery, they end up hooking me up to a ventilator, and I was out for 3 days. Normal people wake up after the surgery. I didn't wake up for 3 days, and even when I woke up, I was up. Like we're talking right now, as cognitive as I am right now, I could hear everybody in the room talking, but I couldn't move my eyes. I couldn't move my body, but I could hear them all talking about me. And I'm like, am I in a coma? Like, how do I communicate? I couldn't move my body. I couldn't move anything. Like, how do I let them know I'm here? I could hear everything they're saying. Had no idea what day it was. I didn't even realize I was out for 3 days. But it was really scary. Probably a few hours I laid like that where I couldn't move. And I'm like worried, like, how do I tell them I'm here? Now, they had since taken me off the ventilator. I guess I was breathing on my own or whatever. Maybe I don't know why they put me on the ventilator, but they did. And some nice pictures my daughter gave me. It was nice, thanks for the highlights. But so when I came to it, the one eye opened up, and I was having a hard time seeing things. Like I was seeing 3 or 4 TVs. I finally got the second eye open, and then eventually, okay, things stabilized. But during that time I was out, I say this to people, it could have been dreams, could have been whatever. but I don't think so, because there was things that I saw when I was out that I can only say this to you. And it's one I'm not really comfortable talking about, to be honest with you. It would have been easier to let go, if you want to call that heaven, or call it whatever I was seeing. It would have been really easy to do that. It was like more of a struggle to stay back. Like it was trying to stay back. And it was things that I had never seen. So it wasn't any memories I was reflecting on, because these were all, I'd never seen these things before. And I don't know. I don't know what I saw. It could have been anything. I'm not here to preach on religion. I'm not here to, there could have been a medical explanation for it, absolutely. But I just know that it felt very peaceful if I were to let go and be gone, and not even knowing at that time that that's where I was at. I just knew at that moment in time, whether it was in my mind or not, that I'm somewhere else. And that, so I don't know, maybe I did flatline. They wouldn't tell you if you flatlined on the table. They're not going to tell you any of that. But yeah, I came back out, and it really, really just changed my perception on a lot of things. And yeah, it was pretty scary, to say the least. And
Were you angry that you came back?
no, I wasn't angry at all. No. I was happy to be back. Yeah, because I was still young. I was still only like 51, 52. I still have stores. Because at that time, we had closed our Penn Hills location. We had the Monroeville. And I wasn't angry at all. I just wanted to be back in a way that I could get my life back. And just like everybody else, go back to work and do the things I wanted to do and enjoy my life. Because at that time, my kids were all older. My oldest daughter just started law school. My other one had just graduated high school. She had taken on a lot of responsibility running the pizza shop without any real management experience or ownership experience. And I was helping her from the bed the whole time, working, all the way through with it, with different things I could help her with. But I wasn't angry that I came back, not at all, because I wanted to be here for my family. I always, as a man, I want to take care of my family. I want to help them, give them the best possible situation in life. And then I was real excited about life, because initially when I came back and I got that pacemaker in, wow, I was stronger again. I could breathe. I was so excited for the future that, man,
Things are
okay,
looking up.
things are looking up. Now, I know I got these restrictions with the pacemaker. They didn't want you to do certain sports and didn't want you to do, of course, magnets and anything else. I had, precautions at the airport, and I can live with that. It's okay. My attitude has always been one, okay, let's make adjustments. Okay, this is what it is. Let's make adjustments. And so that's what I plan to do. I love golfing, but I got to watch my full range of motion, at least until the pacemaker takes hold and everything else. And I was just glad to be able to breathe again and be like, man, I remember going down 286, Elton John on the radio. And I was just so happy that maybe that's what I just need, the pacemaker. And now I can get back to life. I can get back. And the pandemic was kind of winding down at that time, and more people were out and about, and things were opening up. And I was just real excited about getting to life. And then unfortunately, my daughter got pregnant, and we had problems with the house, with the kids, my grandkids, very rare diseases, and that created more strain for all of us. And then, in my case, I had lost a lot of weight at that time. At that time, my weight was somewhere around 390, 400, so I had lost well over 100 pounds. And like I said, I was seeing the path to getting back. And then all of a sudden, my legs, I started like what I thought was just fat. But I'm like, why is there just fat on my legs? It doesn't even make sense. Like everything I knew about nutrition and working out and everything, I'm like, why would there only be fat on my leg? So I knew nothing about the lymphatic system then. Like it doesn't even make sense to me. And yet my leg kept getting bigger and bigger and kept getting bigger. And then I started noticing it in my waist area. And it was going up the side of my rib cage. Again, most normal people go get looked at. In my case, I'm afraid to go get it looked at because of everything I've already been through in the hospital. I don't want to go in right away. I don't want to do it. Plus, it was the pandemic still. I just didn't, they really weren't. Business was a little different back then. I mean, you couldn't get everything looked at. Long story short, I don't even know what year are we in, 2026. It would have been 2024, I believe it was. I was attending a party for my grandson who was in the hospital, unfortunately, for his first birthday, getting a bone marrow transplant. So they decided when he came home that they would celebrate a party at the fire hall to give him a real party. And I went to the party, and my leg had gotten so big, and it was just my leg, not the rest of my body, my leg. When I left the party, I wasn't feeling well. I had been sick, like with a cold or flu, whatever I had. So I was already weak, but I couldn't get into my truck. I couldn't physically lift my leg into my truck. My brothers had to help me in because I'm still 400 pounds. It's not easy to put a human being into a truck. So I get in, and man, it scared the hell out of me. I'm like, okay, now what if I was out somewhere and I couldn't get back in my vehicle? And why is my leg so big still? So I started parking my truck on a downhill slope and getting in from a level angle, but I could no longer get out of my truck. So I continued to stay active in a way that I would still drive to go get things, go on drives, go to the pizza shop, the drive-thru, talk to the staff. I'd have meetings in my truck in front of the pizza, like conducting business to the best of my ability, and just kept getting bigger and bigger. Then it spread to the left leg. And by the time I got things looked at, by the time I got a full analyzation of what was happening in my life, my heart was at, I think they call it an ejection percentage of how hard I was at like 39%, 40%, which is basically heart failure. There were numbers that were off the chart with my liver and my kidneys. One particular number with my heart was supposed to be like the high end. I don't remember what it was, but it was 300 was the high end, considered high. Mine was 15,000. Like, they're like, you seriously could die at any moment. Like, we have to get this under control, like, now. And I couldn't, how am I going to get to the hospital? Like, because I can't, at that point, I couldn't even really walk. And so, then again, I go into the hospital, and again, I got liver failure, kidney failure in a sense. I've got heart failure, congestive heart failure. Still the diabetes going on, although the A1C was good. But then on top of all that, whatever they did in my surgeries, I believe it was from 2019 when they affected my lymph nodes when they were taking things out. But I got really bad neuropathy in both of my feet. So my feet were, I don't know how to explain it. People that have neuropathy will understand it, but completely numb. Like all my balance was gone, but at the same time, super sensitive. Like if you just touch my foot, I'll scream. That's how sore it was.
So it's numb, but
with burning.
Yeah.
And super sensitive. Started developing some wounds that were not healing. Anything I get, common cold or anything, most people might be done in a week or two. It would take me 4 weeks. Because again, at that point, my immunity was really, really bad. And there was just a lot of things going wrong. And then on top of that, I had both knees were arthritic, bone on bone. They wouldn't do surgery, and this is before 2019, because my A1C was too high. They wanted me to get that down. They wouldn't give me a shot of cortisone because they said that would be terrible with diabetes. And so there I got those problems. And then I had a cracked femur, which is in the left leg. Okay, and I did that by accident, tripping on something. I was wearing Crocs, hit the concrete. So I've got a cracked femur. We're not going to do anything for that, which could actually kill you because it's going to hit the main artery. So I'm with a cracked femur, both knees gone, both my feet gone, my balance is gone. I got massive elephantitis legs, basically.
I know the viewers can see your right leg right now.
Yeah, I can't lift it. I can't even really lift it.
How big, like how big around is your calf, for instance?
Well, so my right calf, the one that they're seeing right now, is not as big as the left calf. The left calf, around in circumference, okay, is 34 inches.
That's my waist.
Yeah, that's my calf. Yeah, and you can't imagine how much weight that is on your calf. So when the physical therapist will come in and say, well, lift your leg. Yeah, okay. Let me try that for you.
How about your thigh?
My thigh, honestly, my right thigh is about 72 inches. That's even hard to believe. It's literally growing into the other leg. The thigh is so big that my right leg now goes out. It goes out because there's nowhere else for it to go. The scary part is it can get bigger. it can get worse. And then what's really scaring me, though, is it went up through my center section and my midsection and into my rib cage, and now it's pressing on my lung, which I can't breathe now. And because it's in my midsection so bad, they can't even put a catheter in. They'd have to do a surgery just to get a catheter in. So now here I'm in bed with no dignity. I have to urinate in the bed. Everything is in the bed because I can't physically get out of the bed anymore. I've been down for 4 months, been begging and pleading for help. And they put me on hospice. They had put me on hospice, and that only made things worse because I was getting no medical care. And basically, they're just treating it, trying to make your quality of life better. So I was taking morphine and Ativan and all the things just to, but that fight in me, that refused to lose attitude. I'm not accepting this. Okay, yeah, I got organ problems. I get it. But people can live with heart failure. It might only be a year, 5 years, but it's still valuable time that I want to see my grandkids grow. But I could not believe the lack of help for lymphedema in this country. They don't have a lot for it. And they basically want to treat it the same way with diuretics, compressions. But when you're in end-stage lymphedema, most people don't even know what that is. Lymphedema, it hardens. And what it is, it's a protein fluid. It's not fat. It's not water, okay? It's a protein fluid that hardens. It initially starts as, imagine like super glue. You can it's sticky. But once it hardens, you can forget it. It's done. The only way to get it out is surgically removing it. Now, there is some studies out there that say certain supplements and combinations of things can eventually get into the lymphatic system and break that down slowly and then eventually to get it out. Or I've been researching for 2 years to try to find an answer to it. Some places will do a lymphatic surgery where transplant the nodes from one part of the body to the other. But either way, I've had no help because right now, as sick as I am with all the internal organ problems, if that leg wasn't that big, even with my knees being bad, my feet, I still could walk around. I could still get out there and enjoy life. And, I can't even begin to explain to your viewers, I never knew I'd be locked down this long. I'm in this position on my elbows because the lymphedema is so big on my legs that it makes it impossible to sleep on my sides. I can't do much because my left side is so swelled, so I'm kind of stuck. The right leg offsets I can't lay on my back because, again, not only, things that I left out of my baseball career and sports career is that I had 10 verifiable concussions. When I say verified, meaning actually go to the hospital. And then I had a fractured skull back in 1990. After the arm injury, I still wouldn't listen to the doctor, playing summer ball, took a line drive above the right ear, knocked out my hearing for 6 months, and was sitting in St. Margaret's Hospital for 3 days in intensive care, with a fractured skull. And ever since that fractured skull, I never could lay on my back because I feel nauseated, really sick. So even when I got out, I used to sleep on my sides. But now I can't. So I have been on my elbows literally for 2 years, sleeping in this position and not being able to move. And I got to tell you, man, even the 4 months here, I never would have made it if you told me I wasn't going to get out of bed. Because before 4 months ago, I was at least getting up with my walker. I wasn't leaving the house, but I was at least able to get to my recliner. And in fact, you and I met for the first time when I was still a little bit mobile. And I'd asked you to help me out and was really encouraged by that. But then my health kept going down and down and down. And then I got to the point where, you start believing what they're telling you. And this goes back to I told you about the way we think is so critical. Because I start buying into this notion that I'm going to die. And I'm believing what they're saying. And that might as well start making arrangements to get all my affairs in order. Everything with my family, want to make sure they're taken care of. And everything was planned out. And, but then, my daughter was my biggest supporter, my youngest. Very convicted in her faith, and I am as well. And, there was nights, I'm not going to lie to you, nights, crying, not because I felt bad for myself, because I was in so much pain. And I have a high threshold for pain. But when your feet are going nonstop with the burning, and when you feel the pain in your knees, that bone-on-bone arthritis, And oh, by the way, well, 2 rotator cuffs are torn too. Let's add that to the equation. Don't want to leave it out for here. Most people have rotator cuff surgery. They know how bad 1 rotator cuff is. I have 2. They don't even score on the register of pain because I have everything else going on. And then with the liver breaking down and everything that goes with that and all the pain inside, I got to tell you, I mean, I'd be screaming out, why am I here? Almost fighting with God in a way. Like, why do you still have me here?
What do you think the answer is to that?
My honest opinion, because I spent many nights trying to figure that out, that in my faith, I believe that we're here as a temporary stay. This isn't everything to life. Okay, some people don't agree, and that's okay. You're entitled to your own beliefs, and I respect them. But we're here to do His work and His purpose, and more importantly, to give. Okay, and here's the thing: He never promised you a great life, an easy life. There's people in third world countries that go through a tremendous amount, and at the end of the day, if our true purpose is our biblical text tells us, is to worship Him, glorify Him, seek Him first in all we do, and spread His word. Evangelize, if you will. That doesn't mean forcing it down people's throats. It just means share the gospel with those who want to hear, and those who don't, you walk away and let them leave that between them and God. Well, I'm here because the one thing I've learned in 6 years is even from the bedside, I can help a lot of people, whether it be in business consultation, baseball consultation. You can't imagine the number of ball players that not only have I helped get into colleges, but also analyze their videos. I have people from all over the country still send me videos. I break them down, I analyze them, send it back. I don't charge anybody to do any of that. Gives me something to do, gives me some purpose. But most importantly, to be here for my kids, to help them, direct them on financial affairs. They're young, just starting off. Spent a lot of time with my son-in-law, who didn't really have a dad growing up. Wanted to be here for my grandkids. I initially set a goal. I want to make sure I'm still alive when my grandson's born. And like I said, they had a really tremendous story. My daughter, sometimes you have to talk to her because their story's amazing. In fact, there was a PBS special done on it. They did a documentary on her life story. And then my granddaughter ended up getting diagnosed with the same disease called HLH. So they had to go back to the Children's Hospital in Cincinnati because that's the best in the country for that particular disease. They had been through a tremendous amount as a young couple. And I got to tell you, as a parent, you're a parent and you know this. When your daughter calls you crying, because initially Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh, they weren't real familiar with HLH. They initially diagnosed my grandson as having leukemia. And then my daughter's calling me crying. Dad, what am I going to do? What if he dies? And man, I got to tell you, as a problem solver, as a dad, it's breaking your heart. Because not only is your grandson in bad shape, but now your daughter. And there's, what can I do? I'm not a medical professional. I can't help. So at the end of the day, that's what I tell her. Like, we got to let the medical professionals, let's do our research. That we're going to get the best care. And I got to tell you, we have exhausted every resource possible and emptied our bank accounts. The amount of money that people don't even realize, not just what insurance covers, but there's a lot of expenses beyond that you need money for it. And at the end of the day, my son-in-law works for post office, was very fortunate. They could transfer his job to Cincinnati. I asked my wife, even though I was in bad shape, I asked my wife to go there and live in the Ronald McDonald House. I didn't want her to be alone all day at her age dealing with that. Please go support her. I'll figure out how to get around here. And so that's what it is. So we didn't share that with anybody in the community. We didn't put on the Plum community pages with our business. Poor us. Asking for money. We didn't do any of that. And people had no clue what our family was going through. And while that's all going on too, my wife lost both of her parents, had to deal with that, taking care of them. Found her dad face down dead. Tremendously tragic experience for her. And in fact, the day of his burial was the same day my grandson was born. So, yeah. And then my dad passed away last year in June, unexpected heart attack. I can't get out of the house to even go attend. My mother's dealing with health issues, very similar to mine. So, yeah, we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot, to say the least. But to answer your question, why am I here? I come to the conclusion that there was all the stuff I had been through, all the hospital visits, were all related to my food addiction. Okay, and abusing food and not really taking responsibility. We're not supposed to eat like that at all. We're not supposed to abuse our bodies. And I let him down because every time I would pray to him, regardless of what I was, whether it was bleeding ulcers or anything else, if you just get me through this, please, I'll change my ways. I'll eat right. I'll do right. But I didn't. And I would come back. And I feel like every time he'd say, I need you to do more work. I have more for you, more planned for you. And we never know what God's intentions are. I need you to, you're going to give me another chance, give me another chance. And my daughter even said at one point when she knew I was like ready to check, I wanted to just check out. She said, Dad, God could have taken you any one of those times, really. But he didn't. You're still around. So there must be a reason you're still around. And I thought, you know what? You're right. If I can make it through this, because this has just been not only just a physical thing, but mental. Remember, I have a nervous breakdown. I mean, I don't know who could lay in a bed like this. I don't know. I go out of my mind sometime. And so at the end of the day, I just said, you know what? If God would get me through it, at any physical mobility, the rest of my life is going to be dedicated to helping people, whatever it is, drug addiction, alcohol addiction. I want to help people who feel like they're completely lost, with no hope, no chance. I mean, you've seen me a few cases. You witnessed me trying to breathe. You can't get much worse. You really can't. Knock on wood. I mean, but at the end of the day, the other thing is I would tell you this. I've been getting emails from people I don't even know, okay, that knew my daughter. My son-in-law got very involved in Bible study classes. Like he teaches Bible studies to a group of men and other people. They're both very involved in biblical studies. And a friend of my daughter's, who she holds Bible study with, didn't have a religious bone in her body, but teaching her about the Bible, the things in the Bible, and how it applies to life, and how you can live a more peaceful life. And really, Scripture's helping you through tough times, to give you the kind of stability you need to feel comfortable and confident. Doesn't always work out in your favor. We can pray, but but it's okay. There's a reason for that. But these people email me and thank me. I've never met you, but the impact you had on your daughter has come through me. And now through me, it now hit my brother and his wife. And they've now gone out and shared the Bible with other people. And it all started with you and what you did for your kids. And so, yeah, again, God does work in mysterious ways. And I know people have different feelings on religion. But again, I would just tell you that I spent a lifetime studying the Bible and could quote you almost any scripture before. But I would classify myself at one point as a 911 Christian, meaning that times are bad and all of a sudden we find God. Like when there's a case of, like when my dad got diagnosed with cancer in 2008, there was only 3 known survivors. And all of a sudden everybody in my family became religious, started going to church. That's a 911 Christian there. That they're only going to call on God when bad things are happening. How about we give God a thanks every day, putting a roof over our head or supplying us with our basic needs. And yeah, tough times happen. But in those tough times, that's what actually draws you closer to Him, because you need His help. And we don't call on Him because we're perfect. We call on Him because we're imperfect. And we do sin. And so at the end of the day, I believe I'm here to try to help people to the best of my ability. And it doesn't mean that I can necessarily help them in this life, but to know that there's something good waiting for them on the other side. You know, if they're willing to accept that. They don't have to. It's their choice. It's between them and God. I don't judge anybody. I'm not God, but I just know that I believe in my heart of hearts He does exist, and I believe that things do happen for a reason. You know, it's even something like this. You know, I never would have met you if I wasn't living here. If one other decision would have changed my path, you and I would have never met. If I didn't see your podcast, if I didn't come across it, because I didn't know you at all. I came across your podcast. If I didn't see that, we're not having this conversation today. And I don't know how many viewers you have, but you don't know how that impacts. I've seen a lot of your guests on, and I'm blown away by some of those stories. And I think to myself, wow, you know, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not the only one that's been in a bad situation. And every situation can be different. It is. It's a different challenge. But how you respond to that adversity is really the key. And it's like I even said the other day to someone, it's not about victories all the time. It really isn't. It's about how do we react to those times that we don't have victory. Do we quit? It's okay to be down and depressed at night. You lost your job. Something happened. But wake up in the morning with a new attitude. Be determined. You're allowed to be weak for the night. You're entitled to that. You're entitled to have a period of downtime. Everybody is. We're human beings. We're not robots. But at some point, you got to get back up on your feet. Because you and I had a period of time that I didn't talk to you for about a year. It wasn't that I didn't want to talk to you. It's just because I was getting so bad. Like, my gosh, if Sean saw me today, because originally, I sought you out to help me get back on my feet. I just figured I need a coach. I need somebody in here to motivate me I need that help. A coach needs a coach. And then again, not knowing my lymphedema, I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, okay.
Did you think I would be disappointed?
Not reaching out to you?
Seeing you like that?
No, it wasn't that. It was just, I literally was so weak that I had already subscribed based on the test they ran that I'm signing up for hospice. And when you hear that, it's a devastating word. And you're like, okay, I don't care what they say. I know what morphine is, and I know what everything else is. And then the lady's saying to me eventually, you have to take this liquid because you won't be able to swallow tablets. I'm seeing all the complications of liver disease, and I have some of those now. Eventually, ammonia goes to your brain. You could die in your sleep with a coma. I have the throat, the veins on the side swell to where getting air and then eating is very difficult because it can get stuck in there. But if the veins were to rupture, I could bleed out and die. Not a comfortable death with any of them. And I just kind of thought, well, it was really my side. Like, if I see Sean, it's almost going to be depressing for me because I believe in what he does. I believe he can help me. But I also believe if all this is really wrong, then I need to accept it. And whatever amount of time I have left, deal with it. And that was probably a mistake I made going on hospice. I shouldn't have gave up on myself. And that was the first time I gave up on myself. Became a different man. A doormat, if you will. Where's that fighter at? Where's that guy? Because even my wife would come out and tell me that you're not the same guy that you once were. And she was right. She was right, 100%. And I don't know. I mean, and then they kicked me off of hospice because I didn't die fast enough for them. Because they say it's based on your medications. You're not taking enough morphine. I said, well, I can't take all that morphine because A, it's going to be bad for my kidneys. And
Which
B,
are already bad.
well, I said the Ativan and the morphine, they put me in la la land. My mind doesn't think clearly, and if I can't think clearly, I can't run my business. So, but on top of that, as heavy as I am, your caregivers, because they had to bring 2 caregivers in. I said, if I don't help them, because I helped push me over to change me. If I don't help them, I don't know if they can physically do it. I don't know. And I don't want to lay in urine all day and all night because you end up with bed sores and everything else. And so at the end of the day, I'll be honest, it's just recently that when they kicked me off hospice, I couldn't get help anywhere. They wouldn't even give me any prescribed medications. I can't go to the hospital because I can't lay on my back without suffocating. I said, well, can I get to the hospital in a wheelchair? Please give me some diuretics just to get the excess fluid out of my stomach, everywhere else. Let me go and do some tests. You can do all kinds of EKG, everything I need. But I just can't lay on my back. Nobody would make the accommodations. Nobody. And then I got the fire hall coming in, and they're just doing their job. They're basically saying they can't get a stretcher in here. They're either going to have to take the window out. It's like a damn Jerry Springer show. Like, is this really happening to me? I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. And then the doorway, they're going to have to widen. So now I have somebody come in Monday to take out the whole corner of that wall so that if I do need to be transported to the hospital, if I had a heart attack or anything, they could get the stretcher in here because they can't cut the corner with the oversized stretcher. But not happening. I'll be honest with you, Sean. It got to the point where this happened in the last 2 days because I think you were here trying to help me because, again, you've been a great help in my life, always offered to help me with any assistance, and I'm grateful for that. I really am. You barely knew me, and you offered to help me, and I'm very, very thankful. And you sat with my brother yesterday, and you both collectively told me, because I haven't seen the recliner. I can't turn around to see it. And they're like, no way, dude, you're not getting in that recliner. Even if you want to, because I want to be able to sit in the recliner. Because when I sit up, I can't breathe.
You would be sitting on the
On the
recliner.
arm, yeah.
Yeah.
So that crushed me. So I literally was crushed last night because of that and other bad news I got. And I'm just like, I'm like, okay, what am I doing? Like, what is going on? And then at some point, it's that refuse to lose attitude that comes back, that I just won't let it beat me. And I said, screw that. I'm tired of this shit. I know how to get better. I know how to get better. It goes outside of the medical monopoly, but I know how to heal myself, even with the lymphedema. But I have yet to put that into place. But I'm putting it into place. I'm going to do whatever it takes to beat this battle. And one of those things is fasting, a major fast, not intermittent fasting. We're talking 5 days at a time. Because after 5 days, you start actually developing new stem cells. Things are regenerating. So I've only been fasting now for 48 hours. And I got to tell you, it's the first time I felt better in 2 years. I rolled over today, could breathe easily, had movement, clarity of thought, and saying, you know what, I'm coming back. I don't give a damn what it takes, and I don't know how long, and there's no guarantees that I will. Maybe along this ride, God decides to bring me home, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. I would not be mad. I've lived a full life, a blessed life. But you know what? I'm not going to, these videos, I appreciate it. Maybe one day my grandson or granddaughter can look at those and know that you just keep fighting. No matter what your circumstances, you don't give up. You don't quit ever. You just, you can be down. It's okay. But put a time limit on it. Just say, I'm coming back now. And you might have to start over 10 times. Whether you're a drug addict, alcoholic, but don't quit. Just don't quit. And I'm determined to at some point get back. Just to say I did it, that I kept my promise to God, that I would eat right. And then you asked me why I think God was doing what he's doing. Because he knew I knew what was right. And I was defying it. So now with the fasting, the supplementation I'm taking, I would, but I also would tell you, don't ever mix black seed oil with morphine. Wow.
Noted.
Oh, that leaves you in a weird place. You don't want to go there. But yeah, I'm determined, and I have great neighbors. A lot of people in this community have helped us, aware of my grandkids' situation. They weren't really necessarily aware of my situation because I've never shared it. I don't want my problems to be other people's problems. They got enough of their own. You're going through a lot of battles with, your mom and dad, and when our parents are sick, it's a lot on us as caregivers, and then our kids, and just people, all of us. There's not a family I don't know that's not dealing with an issue, and it can be job related, monetarily related, whatever. Nobody needs to hear your depressing news, and that's why even when I get my caregivers, I know they're around people every day. I really make it an effort to try to be as positive as I can. And my wife all the time will say, why do you act like that in front of people? Why do you act? Because I don't want to take my garbage and dump it on someone else. I want to be positive. I want them to have a good day. How was their day? I was not, that's just what we have to do. I said, and then she'll say, well, why are you so different with me at night when you're yelling out in pain? I said, honestly, it's showing you that I love you enough that I can be vulnerable around you. That I'm not doing it to make your life tougher. That I can be who I need to be in front of you. You've earned that. You've been with me. You're closer to me than anybody else on the planet. I said, I'm not around my girls. I don't want them to see me in pain like that. Not good when we see our parents in pain. We feel bad. What can we do to help them? I don't want them to have any more stress or pressure in their life than they need to. So again, I don't want to put stress in someone's day. I want to make your day better today. How could I make it more enjoyable? But no, I've lived a life, and believe me, there's so many stories. It's unreal, and all great life experiences. And
Well, this is chapter 1 of your comeback.
okay,
so
good.
We'll come back for the next chapter at some point.
Yeah, and God willing, absolutely. We're not going to do any arm wrestling today. That's unfair. Maybe one day we get back to arm wrestling. Although I'm an old man, I'm older than you, or 10 years older, and in my day I was still pretty strong. But today I can't even open the jar of pickles. My wife has to do it, so wouldn't be much of a match for you, that's for sure. But no, I appreciate you taking the time to let me tell my story, and it's a long drawn out conversation, but hopefully along the way, the message they take away from this would be, just don't quit. You're going to go through troubles. Don't let them beat you down. And there's nothing wrong with having troubles in life, even if you created those troubles. It's okay. It's okay. We've all made mistakes. My mistake was, who are we kidding? At what point did you think you didn't have a problem eating all that food? Like, what normal human being does that? And again, the unfortunate thing, Sean, is I was making a lot of money, a lot more money than most people realized, and a lot more. I didn't have to live in this neighborhood, but I always lived in this neighborhood because I figured if I ever got fired from my job, I can get any job and still afford this house. But when you're making all that money, I'm spending it on massive amounts of food. I go to Red Lobster for snack after work. If I got off at 8 o'clock, ordering $100 worth of food for myself. Yeah, I'll have the lobster. I'll have a little bit of everything. Eating it before I come home. Because one of the things, my oldest daughter began to gain weight, and I quickly stopped bringing food home, and I helped her as a trainer because I used to train people in the gym, and I said, I'm going to become an armchair trainer with her, and we did dumbbell work. We did all the things here, and I'm going to get her to eat right. So we bring the food in. These kids don't grocery shop. We bring the food in. I'm the one that has a food problem. My wife never, we'll take care of that. It ends today because I do not want my daughters to grow up with this. I don't want them to get teased in school. And this to this day. Now, my daughter is by trade a lawyer, but she is very involved in fitness, teaches classes in the Strip, and then also she does marathons now. Her next marathon's in Philadelphia. And but boy, is she committed to fitness and everything. And my youngest daughter as well, very committed, and even my son-in-law. So, the best thing you can do for your kids is educate yourself on what's in your food.
Yeah, you're the biggest role model.
You're the biggest role model. Absolutely. And like you, like working out, and your kids they're gonna pick up so much from you. How you respond to adversity, how you handle problems. That's really, really important because they're like sponges growing up. They're gonna absorb everything that you do. And that's, I used to tell my kids all the time, I am your manager until you're 18. After 18, I'm just your consultant. You can do whatever you want because you're big, you're grown up. But to this day, they still ask me for advice and, try to give it to them. And that's what I tell them. I said, all we can do is look at our parents when we become parents, take the best out of what we liked about them and employ that as being parents. And maybe some things that we didn't like that we think we can do different or adjust. And then at the same time, when you got a spouse, you're bringing both those theories and thoughts in. And that's where, that's the challenge of marriage, working together, because sometimes you're very different. You just are. But no, I enjoyed you giving me the opportunity to share my story. And like I said, I look forward to trying to reconnect with you. And one day, even to go to the gym and have you train me. Because again, the thing I love about a coach is the accountability. That there's days that when we get older, we don't feel like working out. We need that coach to push us through that time that we just want to blow off. And that's so important. And like I said, I'm excited. I'm excited. So I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your time and so much for being a public speaker. You just spoke to thousands of people, Bill.
Yeah, thanks. Well, and just to end on, for me, and then you can end it any way you want, karma. And be careful what you do and say. So I have two theories on how I ended up with this, really ended up with this. One, the blood transfusion I got in Florida. We have no idea whose blood it was. I believe it was an obese person's that came into my body and changed my fat structure. Okay, that's number one. I always tell people, they're like, dude, what happened to you? I haven't seen you since high school. Dude, how'd you get like that? I'm like, well, I had to get a blood transfusion in the 80s, and they gave me some fat dude's blood, and that's how I ended up like this. That's one. Or two, I took a picture, and this could be a movie. It was at the zoo, like early 90s. We go to the zoo, and they had like a farmer. It was a big fat guy cut out, farmer, and you put your head in it. You stand behind it, put your head in it to make it look like you. This is obviously before the days of computers, AI. I took a picture behind the fat farmer. It's supposed to be funny. Now, be careful what you're making fun of.
Premonition.
Yeah, premonition, exactly. And I took a picture of me behind the fat farmer, and I always say that, it's like a Steven Spielberg movie. Man behind the fat farmer, don't let it get you. So yeah, it's you know. But
is
well,
what it
thanks
is.
again.
Yeah.
Well, I won't be married after tonight. After my wife, she's old. She's gonna rip into me tonight. I might be calling your house to sleep tonight. Well, then again, we can't transport me, so I don't know. I'm gonna be in trouble though for sure.
Well,
So
I appreciate you being open and honest.
Yeah.
I know it was a very vulnerable thing for you, but you say you're here to help people, and I guarantee you your story's going to help somebody. So
yeah,
that's
no,
what
I
it's all
appreciate
about.
that. And like I said, if any of my neighbors watch your podcast, at least they know what's going on with me now.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, that's where Bill's at. And
yeah,
he's okay.
yeah, I'm okay. And
Yeah.
then like I said though, it's you know, it's been a struggle running a business from your bed. And hopefully we can get back into the community and do good things. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for letting me tell my story.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll talk to you
You
soon.
want a thumb wrestle? We could. All right, thanks.
Yep.
Appreciate it.